Try number 3 here on the EST Hangout Monday morning. Manawanek, Tom Gazzola. It is now working. People on YouTube saw us come on a couple of times, but actually, first time it came on, it was just a picture of the empty chairs because for some reason that was up.
Weird.
And then the next time there was no audio, so they just saw us sitting here. But we're back. We're on.
Awesome.
And we've got Jay Milne with us today, of the president of the Wildcats.
Vice president.
Is it vice president?
Vice president of the Edmonton Wildcats. Yeah, and boys,
Congrats.
we got her done on the weekend.
Well,
Yes.
I will get to that right away, but how do we get you president? Like, what do we have to, like, do you need me to slash some tires for
Yes.
you, Jay?
Yes,
Okay, we'll talk about that off the air. And
we
I've
can
got
talk about
you.
it on
You're a
the
little
air.
criminal.
You know,
I've got you.
you know, our president is Brad Gatchney. He's been there for many a years, and I've tried poisoning him.
Okay.
I've tried anything. I've tried many different things. He's only been in the hospital twice, so it hasn't gotten that serious.
Oh.
But it's about time.
Aim
No,
low
just
and
kidding.
achieve, right, Jay?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I mean, you got to take over by any means necessary.
Jed Roberts, Double E alumni, is going to be here shortly. Just trying to find the place. So the point of the hangout, though, is you come and go as you kind of please. But
You were right. Jed was my coach.
He was.
at the U of A. Yeah,
this is going to be some fun stories
Yeah.
coming up here, I think,
Well,
between the two of you.
he's so I used to be.
What was his coaching job there?
He was a defensive line coach.
Okay. And you're
I was a defensive back.
because
so
you were the safety,
Yeah.
bone crushing people.
yeah. Which he'll have some stories about that for sure. But just an all time locker room guy. Like he was one of the coaches that would be kind of in there with the fellas. There he is, right
Look
there.
who it is.
The man, the myth, the legend. No, so yeah, he was. But then we remained pretty close.
Jump on
after
in there.
that.
Jed, this chair's for you.
Good morning.
Welcome. Thank you for coming by. Chairs do that. Nice to meet you. So the mic's right there.
Can we talk about the mics right now?
Speak into this part of it.
Matthew, can we talk about the microphone?
We could.
I feel
Do
like
you want to?
Darth Vader.
Oh, you want to talk about that part of
Because
the
like we have to
microphones?
talk it to. We found out why these mics
Yeah.
were not optimal, and it's because you have to talk
Probably
it to the
perfect.
side of them, not the top.
Oh, you got the ring too.
He's
today?
not even listening, Jay.
Yeah, buddy. I broke
I'm
not even
listening to
listening.
you. We have to. I was going
Does
to
it
get to
not
that.
feel awkward?
This actually feels pretty fine to me. Like it doesn't have to be like right in the face.
This feels pretty good. Yeah.
Really?
I don't mind it where it is right now.
Having it the other way. Whatever.
So here's the problem with the microphones. We're audio guys, and we're speaking into the microphones the wrong way. Because
were.
from where we used to be, and with their microphones, you spoke to the top of the microphone.
Which makes sense.
And so for these, I started because like Dusty's old mic we were using, that's like kind of where you could tell he was speaking into it. And so I've just been like naturally, like, that's where you have to speak into. And then the audio hasn't been as crisp for this show as it should be.
Right.
And I've been trying to figure it out. And then I was reading about these microphones, and you're actually supposed to speak into the side of it. And so
counterintuitive.
Poor Jed. Look at Jed's trying to figure it out. Like,
We got poor Jed in the box
Jed,
he's
over
got
here.
it,
blame
at
Matt.
least.
Just blame Matt. We're
Yeah.
sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. Thank you.
but it sounds better now.
Good.
Like his voice is going to come across very clear.
Like Barry White.
Absolutely.
but nice.
As it should, like as opposed to speaking away from the mic, which was just that.
Who bought these mics?
As Dusty, and I was
why?
there with him, but I didn't know these. He used these mics before, so we were like, I was
Where?
like, okay, that's sure, at his house.
Oh.
Back in the day. But that's the story. So as audio guys, we were speaking into the microphones wrongly.
Does he like candy apples?
Dusty.
Dustin?
Yeah.
I'll assume yes. He's a big child at heart.
Well, it's just, I think it's a metaphor for, some childhood issues that Dusty might have.
I like
You know,
that.
that's how
get
you
deep.
hold the candy apple to your face, right?
Yes.
You kind of take a bite from the side, right? You can't bite it from the top, right? That won't work because you'll end up with a stem. But I just think he has some unresolved childhood issues.
Well, good. He's listening in the other
Yeah,
studio.
maybe we can get him in here, Jed, and you guys. We'll just leave,
How-
and you guys can just talk.
Work it
to
out.
heart. Work it out.
man to man.
That's what we could do with it.
I'll go get some candy apples. And bring it back.
it
Demonstrations,
is Halloween
anyone?
coming up.
Yes, that's
It's
right.
Halloween month. Now all the TV shows and all the TV channels, they'll do all the spooky stuff going. Actually, as a Simpsons fan, I think usually Much Music just plays the Trails of Horrors all month, which
they
is
do.
going to be a lot of fun for me, actually.
That's like Christmas for me, the Simpsons Halloween episode. Amazing.
They're
Some
so
of the
good.
best television of all time.
Oh,
So
those, and it's funny actually. The first few episodes weren't called the Treehouse House of Horror, and then eventually they branded it as Treehouse of Horrors. But their first Halloween ones weren't labeled as
Adapt
we know
on
it
the fly.
nowadays.
Yeah.
And now before you came, we're going to get into the Wildcats quickly here for your big win.
Yeah,
So-
it was. So, I last time I was on, I told you we were doing our 40-year anniversary for
Yep.
the '83 championship team. So that was Saturday night as well. So we had 25 guys that had been at the bar for 3 hours before the game. Show up, form the tunnel for the fellas coming out onto the field, and I've never heard people talk like that with such, emotion behind it. They wanted these guys to get, because we haven't won we went 0-8 last year, and it hasn't been, we've been in some games this year, but we haven't got a win yet. But these fellas were excited,
Good.
to say the least. So we squeaked one out. We were up big in the fourth quarter. Calgary executed one of the nicest short kick onside kicks I've ever seen in my life. Got it, scored it. So they made it a one score game at one point, but we then got another go ahead touchdown. So the fellas were happy. The Wildcats, when you win, you sing. We've got a Wildcat song that we sang in the locker room for the first time. And everybody and their dog was in that locker room. My daughter, who's one of the water girls, was on my shoulder videotaping it. And there's a couple words in there that are a little explicit, I guess you could say. But it was a night I'll never forget for sure. Because it was our head coach, Kevin Woodrich. It was his first win as head coach too. So pretty big night. And then we went out to a local establishment in Sherwood Park, and lo and behold, Jed Robertson, the Sherwood Park Rams head coach or coaching staff, are there.
Yeah.
So we ran into each other and had a water together.
Yeah, we
Just
saw
water.
Cash
Just
and
water.
Jay, and it was exciting to hear that they'd won, because there was a buzz in there before those guys showed up. Oh, the Wildcats won. I mean, junior football is a big deal in this town, right? You got the cats and the dogs, and I played with Chris Johnstone, who was on that championship team.
That's right.
I worked with the gentleman by the name of Dallas Koenig, who's a policeman now, who was on that team. That team was amazing. Like, they had so much talent, and a lot of those guys went on to do some incredible things, not just in the sports arena, but just in the community. So it's nice to have them reconnecting with that past. And when you see the group of guys kind of limping onto the field, all of them are convinced that they've got one play left in them, right? And especially after 2 or 3 hours of fellowship at the watering hole, it's a little bit of healthy expectation, from the generation that came before, and it kind of lets the young guys know where the bar is and where it should be, really, to be honest with you. And I think that Jay's got the organization pointed in the right direction. Cash is a pretty progressive young coach, and I think your first year's head coach, it's humbling. You really find out in a hurry what you don't know.
Well, he's learned, like you said,
And
he's
his
learned a
learning curve
lot.
is incredible,
And
right?
he's the
So-
first one to say that. But that's good.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
is.
if you're not, then I think you're maybe being a little stubborn or just trying to do it your way. But if you're humble enough to learn and say, yeah, I didn't know this, now I know it, well, then you're going to move in the right direction.
Yeah.
At least that's the thought process we have.
Jed, we talk about coaching in hockey changing and evolving, and you said something there. What are new coaches in football implementing now compared to 5, 10, 20 years ago? Because if there's an evolution in coaching in football, what are these new coaches becoming? I thought of Mike McDaniel, but what is a new coach these days?
Well, the game changes just like everything else, right?
Yeah.
There's one constant in life is change. And one thing, and I think you alluded to it, sometimes people are stubborn and they won't change. And that sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. I think more often it's a bad thing when you're coaching, because you have to roll with it, because it's constantly evolving. But there's nothing new under the sun. The only thing that changes is the safeguards that we're putting in with hockey and football, with of course, everybody's aware of the concussion issue. And I can give you an example. In youth sports now, in the football, if you're blocking a punt, it doesn't matter if you touch the ball. If you hit the kicker, it's roughing, period. It's a flag.
Right.
No, full stop, right? So for me, being 55 years old, that's counterintuitive to me. So I'm like, well, okay, so now we're just going to have to teach them how to come from the side.
Right.
And so that's an example of, if a team runs an onside kick, well, you got to coach your guys up and tell them, this is what their tendencies are and stuff like that. I think it's just honest. It's like a chess match, right? Like one coach from the other, and you have to build that part of it into it because there's always tweaks every year, and part of that is we're really becoming a lot more aware of the pratfalls of some of the concussion, and the technology is incredible compared to like when I played. I was still wearing those VSR4 helmets, right? That had the cubes in them, and
Right.
now they've got these pretty space age technology helmets that are So the game's constantly evolving, and you either roll with it or you die. Like there's a lot of coaches that refuse to change. You've seen that in the NHL now with some of the guys that come back, and the game has just completely passed them by, right? So it's good to see a young guy like Cash get the chance and an opportunity to take over a franchise that really needs that right now. A guy that, forward thinking and has a lot of energy and, has the ability and has played at the highest level, right? So that's something that, the kids it resonates a lot when you're recruiting kids. Cash can say, hey, man, if this is something you're into, I've got connections all across the country, and that new breed of coach is really up on the social media part of it. It's in the promoting your own brand, quote unquote. And like it or not, that's a thing, right?
It is.
When you look at NCAA right now, you look at the NIL, coaches, you can't bury kids on the bench anymore, right? Kids like, oh, I'm not getting any time, bang, I'm gone, right? Mm-hmm. And that's always kind of been the same because we got two teams in the city. You could go one way or the other. It's not easy being a head coach nowadays because as the deck is completely stacked against you in a lot of different ways. But it's also, if you're really good at that type of thing, which I think Kevin is, that will show. If you've got a guy that is relationship based, like I think Kevin is, and guys will want to run through the wall for him.
The social media aspect is off the charts. Like it is mind numbing to know how much you have to be involved and aware of these guys that are coming up.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking guys that just graduated or guys that are in grade 12. We're talking kids Jed's son's age, that's playing for the Sherwood Park Rams that, hey, these are the top 3-4 guys. And, Coach Nyschuk is getting that up the pipeline to high schools. Mm-hmm. And then high school guys are starting to talk about these guys. And it's up to the junior coaches to know that. And the one way to do it that is pretty foolproof right now is Instagram.
Yep.
Wow.
Because all of these kids love promoting themselves on Instagram. Hey, look at me in my drip. Look at this, right?
Put music
Look at you
in there.
with the slang.
Tape, it's my drip.
Wow.
Speaking of drip, these are my custom Wildcat shoes too.
Those are
Nice.
Not bad.
I have a pair of black ones, like the reverse color. Those are beautiful.
These I made.
Air Max, baby.
Yeah.
Fresh. Did you hit those with the Mr. Clean Magic Eraser this morning? Because they look like they're
he did.
unscuffed. Yeah.
Because he
Tommy,
knew,
come on.
at some point he was going to have to flash them, right?
I knew
and
I
it
was going to
worked.
He was
flash
waiting
them.
for that.
Hey,
I was waiting.
It's
Talk
18
about
minutes
drip,
too
you're
late
right.
for him to mention that.
Okay, hang on. I got to cross the word drip off.
he gets it in there.
What else do I need to get?
Yeah, what else? What
And
other words?
speaking of that, I saw, was it the Ravens did the Gen Z social media term drop video?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh
wow.
yeah. So now I'm cluing in. YouTube Trev rolls his eyes every time I say something. And it's like, dude, you don't know about that? I'm
You're
like,
the
"No."
old guy.
I am the old guy now.
But you got to do like Jason and chart your words.
Chart
And
your
then
words.
just-
You got to get in at least
get the
5
check
per
mark
episode.
going. Yeah.
Although YouTube Trev thought his generation invented icing of people. You guys know what icing is?
That's
Like
adorable.
Smirnoff Ice?
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
adorable.
no. He's
No,
way
like-
younger than
we
me.
were talking to him about it, and he's just like,
This has been
I thought we invented this. He's like, no.
Wait till
it's
he-
been around a lot longer than
No,
you.
you know what now? Now it's a race to who can ice YouTube Trev first.
Oh, he'll be
Oh.
iced.
He's going to get
He
iced.
will be iced multiple times.
Yes, he will.
Wait till he finds one when he goes to the bathroom. The old saran wrap toilet trick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hey, the toilet's
He
something's
thinks
not
he
working in
invented
the
that.
back.
We'll
Yeah.
show him the real.
Yeah,
Next year,
yeah,
toilet
yeah,
doesn't work that well, so it'd be perfect.
Okay, drip aside. I was gonna
But yeah,
ask.
but Instagram. And then
Yeah.
these kids love to put themselves out there and say, hey, look at my clip from the weekend. Look at my touchdown. And as a head coach at the junior level, CIS level, I mean, I've talked to Chris Morris about this before. He is now like a master of Instagram.
Yeah.
Because you have to be. And that not only do you like the kids, right? You like their friends. You find who they follow, and you like them too.
Wow.
Because it's got to be a full on approach to then and all it is at that point is you're putting a bug in their ear and you're saying, hey, Coach Morris liked my video or Coach Cash liked my video. That's pretty big for a 13, 14-year-old to have that, right? But it's how it works.
Yeah.
It's the strangest thing, and I certainly can't do it. I do the Wildcats social media on game day, and that's enough for me.
Yeah.
Like I get headaches from that. But it's a full-time gig.
It is.
You know?
Well, I mean, at the Sherwood Park Rams, like I've got 2 boys that play for them right now. We have a communications director. Like, what?
Wow.
Like, this is an amateur football association.
Right.
What do you need a communications director for? Like, in the past, that would mean maybe drafting up a letter or something and sending it out in the mail, 40 years ago. Now, that means, basically curating your own social media.
And you get the word out there. You got 3 or 4 good
game.
players,
Yeah,
and now
exactly.
here's game day. And then now all of a sudden it's out there, and then that could lead to recruitment. Recruitment could to lead to how the reputation of the program, and all of a sudden, the Rams. We got Jed Roberts coaches over there. We got to get our kid over there because that's the program. That ripple effect is insane. So I mean, I know we mock social media, we make fun of how old we are and stuff, but like I get it.
I woke up
It's
this
legit.
morning and something popped up in my email, and I'm like, you remember Mike Sellers? Right? He played fullback.
He played for my
Mike
Redskins
Sellers.
back in the day.
Yeah, so then
Yeah.
he went and he
I
played for the
hated
Browns, then he came back,
watching
played
him.
for Winnipeg, then went back down and had an iconic career, like one of the greatest Redskins of all time. They call him the Commanders now, but he's at IMG now. And he's
really?
coaching there, right? And
wow.
Mike and I keep in touch and we talk and stuff, but we don't ever talk about anything to do with our kids or anything. We just kind of give each other a hard time, and once in a while I'll message him and say, "Hey, Happy New Year," type of thing. I wake up this morning and there's a notification, and my son, my oldest one, my 14-year-old, had filled out a thing for recruitment, like NSCA or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, I have to fill this out," right? And it's all the stuff we just talked about. Okay, they're going to send you notifications and let you know, and then they'll give you an hour. Like you can do an online appointment with them, and they can tell you what you need to do for recruitment. I mean, it's cutthroat down south, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty nuts here too as well. I mean, if you look at hockey, like these kids, the guys up, the junior coaches know who the good coaches are, all the way down to Adam, right?
Yep.
Like they're always beating the bushes looking for new talent, see what shakes loose. But it's not a bad thing. I actually like it. I'm very ADHD anyway, right? So like a notification, and then I end up in a rabbit hole. I had no idea how I got there, right?
Sounds familiar.
A half an hour later, what am I doing? I got to get back to work, right? So, so my kids are doing that way, but they don't always tell me. They'll be like, "Oh yeah," and then I'll talk to them. I'm like, "What's that all about? Like, when did you get on? Like, why did you register for the IMG thing?" And
Yeah.
so I haven't had that conversation with my son yet, but I also have to be like, say, listen, man, let's be realistic, right? Like that's the top 1% of the 1% of all the North American football players. So let's keep it in perspective. I said, there's a lot of hard work that has to occur before you can even think about that. So I think that as a coach, sometimes that's involved, right? And that's the other thing about NIL is that some kids may have a distorted perception of kind of who they are as an athlete and what they bring to the table. And I think that great coaches do a good job of like having those conversations with kids. Listen, this is where we see you fit in, and being realistic with them, and then being willing to let them go. Maybe if they don't feel like they're a good fit in their program, that's a tough conversation to have.
Yeah.
It's not easy being a coach, man.
I wanted to ask this: is there more cohesion among coaches in different ranks in football? I know that there's always conferences, symposiums. Coach comes in, you have him a guest coach. He speaks to a team, meets with the coaching staff. Like that's always been part of football, hockey, basketball, baseball. But is there more integration now, more conversations between coaches at various levels than there were before, or has that stayed the same from the levels that you guys are dealing with? Jed, you're dealing with minor football association. Jay, you're dealing with junior football, so you're talking like you said,
I don't
to
know
Coach
if
Morris.
cohesion is the right word. I think more awareness.
Awareness, okay. Well, that's why I
think,
asked.
I mean, humans are unpredictable at the best of times, right? So I think that coaching is probably one of the most nepotistic professions I've ever come across, right? Like you've got coaching trees that are insane, Have you ever taken a look at the Belichick coaching trees?
All right.
That the
It's not
branches
good, though.
reached all the way out to here. You remember Rich Stubler, who just
Yeah.
passed away?
Yep.
He's the one who got the match defense from, was Bill Belichick when Belichick was with Cleveland. And so, I mean, everybody kind of knows everybody, right? And whether they get along or not, or whether they're cohesive, well, that's up for debate, right? At the best of times.
Maybe,
right? So,
lines of communication.
but
are more
the
open.
social media part of it,
Yeah.
that is just brought and you can say the wrong thing and then you've got a grudge, right? So that's one of those. I think for the most part, people try to work together. I think that we're all kind of going after the same talent, and I think you have to be kind of careful with how you present. Maybe you've got the inner cities rivalry between the Cats and the Dogs, and you guys are going to cross paths. And I know that Cash and the Huskies, those guys, they all know each other. They all grew up playing together. He's a local kid, right?
And it's very respectful.
Yeah, it is.
It is. And it's like we obviously recruit the same guys.
We're all eating at the same table.
We're all eating
right?
at the same trough.
You don't have to.
Let's just be nice about it. And hey, if you've got a guy that you circled and you want us to back off, just let us know, and we will respectfully, because we'd want that the same. And actually, the Huskies and Wildcats tend to recruit different parts of the city, anyways. Yep. Historically, the Wildcats are the guys that are going to get the Sherwood Park guys, the Ainley guys, and the St. Albert guys.
Yep.
North side,
Whereas the Huskies are going to get your West End guys, your Spruce Grove guys. So
and Southern Alberta, they
Gotcha.
So that there is somewhat of a line for recruiting, anyways, that just works geographically for where the two clubs play out of. Yep.
I can't imagine that ever conflicted, or you try to pluck a guy from the other team's territory ever happening between those two teams.
Tommy, I will say this for fact that it has never happened today. Hasn't happened
Are
today.
you serious?
Hasn't happened today.
Oh,
Today.
Today.
Like
Okay.
today, it has not happened.
Today.
Okay.
Today,
It has not
it has not occurred.
Maybe
Which
we
is
start.
just-
Yeah.
Hey,
They're
one
still
for
young,
one on
though.
the Tommy Gasol
Yeah,
recruiting
They didn't
fund.
say later today. It won't happen. It was today.
Well,
it didn't happen.
things can change. Things can change.
I do just have to quickly
Crazy.
to Mike Sellers, as an Eskimo fan growing up and stuff. When I saw the Bombers have like a first and goal from the 3, I hated it because I knew Sellers was getting the ball. And he was going to
Automatic.
score, and it was just I was so happy when he went to the NFL because
Yeah,
he didn't
he was
go up
amazing.
against Edmonton anymore.
Well, he had Charles Roberts behind him, so it was
Yeah.
thunder and lightning, right?
Well,
one of them
Tupac
was gonna
Charlie.
get you, right? So
Jameson tells the best story of that Charles Roberts at Old Winnipeg Stadium at halftime ripping a dart with his foot up on the wall. And then you would run for like another 70 yards. In
John
the second half.
Mandrich used to do that here. He would do that right in the locker room, and Dwayne would like shoo him out the door. It was awesome.
How did those Bombers teams not win a Grey Cup? Like Kahari Jones, Milt Stiegel,
Doug Brown?
Charles Robert, Doug Brown.
yeah.
Like they get to 1, but like how did they not actually ultimately get the win?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, only those guys can answer. I got a funny Mike Sellers story though.
Lay it on us.
So Mike came to us when he was 18 years old, the youngest Edmonton Football Club player of all time. He came from Tacoma. His mom had passed away, so he tried his hand at community college, I think, for a semester. It didn't pan out. I think he played JUCO for 1 year. He was a Div 1 kid. Like, all the schools wanted him, but he didn't have the grade. So Hugh had some connection, and they brought him up. And so he made the team as a defensive lineman.
What?
People don't remember this about him, but he played nose guard. And him and I, we spent a lot of time together. Man, that kid, I got to tell you, we would run kickoff, and I swear he probably knocked 8 kids out that year. Like, he would just run down and just run right through people.
Wow.
And I would just be standing over the guy going, hey, man, are you okay? Like, this Mike really hits hard. I don't recommend taking him on again.
It's so sincere.
Yeah. And so Mike, he was a pretty cocky kid, right? And he was still very much like 12 years old in a lot of ways when he came to us. Just a big, like, unbelievable. And I kept telling him, man, you play your cards right, man. You could have a really good career in the NFL. He's like, oh, man, I'm just happy to be here. I said, no, man, listen to me. We would have our meetings, and sometimes Mike would get into our cookies and stuff. And, like, because we'd have snacks. Like, that's why I grabbed this muffin, because I wanted to tell the story today. And it's just funny that he came up. So Mike would come in, and Willie Pless would always bring snacks and stuff, and he would leave them in his locker. So Mike got into the habit of like going in and dipping into the snacks, right?
Yeah.
Maybe one day it was donuts, next day it was cookies or whatever. So one day Willie says, hey, all the vets, don't touch any of the cookies that I brought. My wife made special cookies today for Mike Sellers, but don't anybody touch them. I'm telling you right now, you don't want to eat these cookies. And so we're like, what? They look really good. No, man, trust me, don't touch the cookies. So we went in. Had the meeting, came out, the entire plate was gone. And Willie said, oh, okay. So we go out to practice. We get out, we're starting to do stretch, and then Mike starts to move around and he's squirming. And then he gets up and he starts sprinting into the locker room. And he's maybe halfway across the parking lot when he completely loses his bowels. No. Willie Pless had put X-Lax chocolate chips in the cookies. And Mike, and then you know what? He almost actually hurt Mike because he ate so many of the cookies that like he had to spend the night in the hospital.
Oh my God!
Because he lost all of his. Unbelievable. Mike never touched another snack after that. And Mike hates it when I tell that story because I mean he was 18 years old. You know, like don't touch your guys' stuff, man.
Yeah.
Like, keep your hands to yourself, type of thing. I guarantee he's probably never done that again. Unbelievable. I'll never forget it, man. He was just running as fast as he could. He couldn't make it. He made it about as far as like. You know, crested the hill kind of where, because there used to be tennis courts here, right? To the right there, before they built the field house. Where the field house is, because the parking lot right now used to be our practice field. Right. And so he ran, he bolted, he made it up to crested the hill, and then he just lost it. And Giz was laughing so hard, I thought he was going to die because he was laughing so hard. He was on the ground just crying. He couldn't even talk. He was like, this is the funniest thing he'd ever seen.
I could see poor Dwayne grabbing a barrel trash can.
Yeah. Dwayne was not happy.
Tongs.
He was so mad. Yeah.
Lighting a match and chucking.
Oh, he was so mad. Oh, no, yeah, they didn't even bother. They just threw it in the dumpster outside there.
We're at Jed Roberts, Double E alumni, Jay Milne of the Wildcats, Mattawanna, Tom Zola as well with you here on Edmonton Sports Talk with the EST Hangout. Those listening at edmontonsportstalk.com or watching on YouTube, 780-218-9999 is the number you could text us at, or you can get in the nasty chat. You have a text you want to get to?
This is a good one. It's a feel-good story about Jed that doesn't involve any chocolate chip cookies that have X-Lax in them. This one comes in and says, I have a lot of respect for Jed Roberts. I used to watch him play with the green and gold when I was a young kid. And then one day in high school football, he came out with my team for a practice, and he worked with my positional unit, the O-line, D-line. That was like a dream come true. The short amount of time spent with him was like years worth of knowledge. I'll never forget how he showed me as an O-lineman when and how to bury a D lineman who is pulling a spin move on me. Thank you, Jed, for all that you do in our communities. You are a legend.
Yeah, spin move is my go-to move. So yeah, I had a bit of insight into like, so if you do this, boom, this is what you do. So he, I think that was Ross Shepp, if I'm not mistaken. But
no confirmation on the high school, but you left your mark on the youngins.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah.
It's all, you know what? That's what it's all about. And my dad, when I came here, my dad played in the CFL for 7 years. And he actually played, I think, his first game at Clark. And my son actually just had a pretty good game. Both of my sons had good games at Clark there yesterday and the day before. Neither here nor there. I'm getting sidetracked. That's my ADHD coming out. Edmonton is a small town disguised as a city. And my dad told me when I came here, he said, man, they do everything right there. Everything's first class. The organization, top to bottom, unbelievable, right? So when I showed up here in 1990, my dad said, I've got two pieces of advice for you. Remember that first thing I told you about Edmonton being a small town disguised as a big city, because everybody knows everybody. And the second thing is say yes to everything and don't expect to get paid. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, and he goes, listen, if you put the time in with them and go out into the community and meet people where they're at, they will take care of you. You'll never work another day in your life, and you'll never want for anything, right? And that's exactly... This place is amazing in terms of like, because the weather is so brutal and we don't get a lot of sunlight this time of the year. It starts to get, right around Christmas, we don't really see the sun. People, when the sun comes out, everybody's out volunteering. There's more festivals here than you shake a stick at, right? So everybody really takes advantage of it. And I think people really have to depend on each other here as far north as we are, more so than other, cities and towns. But people here are just different. People are a little bit more, like, just one of the reasons why I chose to stay here. I came here in 1990. I came up from the States, grew up in the States. And people are just more willing to help each other out here, with exceptions. But more often than not, like my family's American. I go back south sometime and visit. But it's just a different mentality down there. It's very cutthroat. Here it's a lot more, community orientated, and people realize that you can't do anything alone. You always have to reach out and ask for help, and people are always willing to help here, unlike any place else. So it's a different breed, man. It's a different town. I love it, and that's one of the things I love about the junior football is that Yeah, it's a rivalry, but at the end of the day, we're all out here playing football, and we're all trying to grow the game, and that's more important than anything else. You know, all the petty jealousies and rivalries and stuff like that, they exist, and we can't pretend like they don't.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, both organizations just want to grow the game, and the university does a good job of kids moving back and forth. They don't prevent that, you know, and that's important to have that collaborative relationship between both of the junior teams and the university, because sometimes kids aren't ready when they come out of high school. They need that year of junior.
They're not
season.
ready.
You know, they're not.
They're
or
not.
maybe you get a kid like Simeon Rotier who came out as a tight end, couldn't catch hell from none, you know. So they moved him to left tackle, and we go on a championship run because we had this kid, because our starter, who was all Canadian the year before, blew his knee out in training camp, but we had no left tackle. We had nothing. So we're looking at this kid. Well, let's plug him in. And then, lo and behold, he refused to get beat in one-on-ones. And then he went on to have this. But he was nobody. I'm telling you, when I say he could not catch, he was totally uncoordinated, but he refused to let you beat him when he was blocking you. And so he went from being this gangly 225-pound kid, 6'6", to becoming this monster that had a great legendary career with the Edmonton Football Club. So, and those are the kids that the junior teams really do a good job of, like, bringing on, teaching them skills, the technical aspect of it, and just teaching them how to be good citizens, because, you know, they do the 50-50 and getting out into the community and giving back and realizing that there's an entire world out there that exists outside of their football orbit, you know, and making the teach, because you look at the business community, you'll almost more often than not, are you a cat or a dog? You know what I mean? And they're one or the other, or maybe they played at the university and, you know, had that connection. So I mean, it extends well beyond, you know, that great 4 or 5 year period coming out of high school.
Right.
Those relationships sustain you in life. So.
Which is why both your kids will play for the Wildcats, right?
I was just gonna say,
totally
while
did,
you were
yeah.
so eloquently describing
Are they
community,
signed yet?
This
and
is an
harmony,
offer.
yeah.
This is an offer officially.
I think he was just recruiting a kid while you were describing how cohesive the community is. So
Hey,
there you go.
I see the Instagram
From
posts.
the west side, yeah.
I see all the stuff Jed posts.
Are you liking them?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
just
they're-
you're
they're-
on
there
it.
you go.
He's planting seeds.
Hey,
right.
hey,
Look how
this is
smooth this guy is.
Evil
this
genius.
Is, the son of 2 generations of professional football. I'd like them to be Wildcats, okay, guys? Can we make that?
Oh,
can we
I'm good with that.
Can we get a piece of paper at
Yeah,
some
we
point?
can get some kind of formal
Just sign that.
ledger.
Well, verbal.
verbal.
It's
Verbal
verbal
for
is good
like,
as
you
anything.
could-
I mean,
you could
yeah.
take that
We
to
can
court,
shake
I
on it.
think. So, like,
Hang
There
on,
we
I
go.
have to speak into the side of the microphone while
There
I
we
do
go.
this. Candy apple, candy apple.
This is on camera.
I think that's good enough.
Good.
I
Can we
think
get
everything
that?
locked
Hey,
in.
YouTube, Trev, we're going to
cut
need
that.
that
Clip it.
cut.
Clip that later.
It's a legal document now.
It's binding.
You guys have a relationship
Yep.
from back a little bit. You coached him
Oh my
at the
gosh.
university?
Listen, I got to tell a Jason Milne story. We were in Burnaby playing
yeah.
the Simon Fraser clan, and we hated Simon Fraser because they had this sort of like, well, we played in the NCAA, you know, which is whatever, right? So
There, you know what didn't stink.
Yeah.
and they had. I came in 2005, and we were 6-1 that year, and we went over there, and they were stupid enough to hang one of their guys out to dry on a post, and Jason just one thing. Jason wasn't gonna like overwhelm you with his physical stats. Like he was quick enough. His top end speed probably wasn't what you wanted for a guy playing center field back there.
This is
but
true.
Jason had this ability to arrive. Like if he needed to be someplace, it didn't matter what the stopwatch said. He was gonna get there, and you were gonna regret it. And so the Simon Fraser quarterback put it up, and Jason hit that kid so hard. And I remember Jason came off the field, and everybody was like hyped up. Whoa! I got goosebumps right now thinking about it. And our defensive back coach, Pete Rasmussen, walked up to Jason and grabbed his face and says, "When will they learn? When will they learn? When will they ever learn?" Because he'd been doing it for like 2 or 3 years, right? And so, lo and behold, the guy threw it. They thought he was going to test Jason, and that kid did not play for the rest of the game. Yeah, and he was good for one of those a game. Like you can't do that anymore because the game has changed. You can't hit guys like that. So Jason would probably pick it off. Jason could have picked it off, but Jason was the guy that would set the tone, and it would just get the whole bench was on fire, right? And as soon as that would happen, and then. So we took Jared Winkle, who had 200 yards at halftime.
Right.
We put a
Winkle.
backup
Played,
in,
yeah.
Dave Bissett. who ended up being on the Canadian bobsled team.
Bobsled, yeah.
Oh, wow.
230 pounds, ran a 4.3. He took a sweep, 70 yards to the house, first carry. He was fast. I mean, that's the talent we had at the U of A back then, right?
Wow, because Winkle played in the CFL
Yeah,
for
he
a
did.
while, right?
He
Yeah.
did. And Winkle was a Wildcat. And so
we
one of
came
the
up at
things
the same
about
time.
like
Yeah.
when the Wildcats are doing well, when the Huskies are doing well, the U of A does well, right?
Right.
And so that was one of the outcomes of that is guys like Jay just like came up and just blew. Man, I to this day that's like top 5, one of the best hits I've ever seen.
I love the when will we
Yeah.
when will they learn?
He was just like, when will they learn?
I
When will they learn?
appreciate
I
the
always
kind
wonder.
words.
I always wonder what the coaches are saying when they're getting in a player's grill. I'm like, oh, he must be giving it to him. But when will they learn is
Yeah.
brilliant.
When will they
It
learn?
I feel
was
like sometimes it's a lot of nonsense.
Yeah.
right.
In a sense.
Yeah, I can't. But that, like,
But it's the emotion just coming out.
that was like part of my because when you're a conference all-star, then you're asked to submit a tape to be chosen as an all-Canadian, and that I know got me one of my all-Canadians was
Yeah.
that hit.
Yeah.
Because that poor guy, I wish we could. You know what? I have the tape, so I'll get it to YouTube, Trev.
An
Excellent.
unbelievable
Because
We'll
it-
create an Instagram thing for you. We'll
Yeah.
put your highlights.
yeah. Hey,
We're
guys,
your
You play for the
trip is gonna be
Wildcats. We'll teach
sick.
you how to do this, but you can't really do it anymore. But
Oh, you're
anyway, this is
aged
what
out.
we used to
Okay.
do.
His head hit the ground before his
Yeah.
his feet. You know, it was a hit for sure. But to have those words coming from a fella like Jed, who, man, I used to be a ball boy for the Eskimos when Jed was playing. Actually, yeah.
Okay.
So your relationship goes back.
Yeah, way
Way back.
My
Even further.
one of my friends growing up, his dad, his name was Heinz Brademan. He was a ref in the CFL.
Oh yeah,
So they would give us access to a few of us to be now the ball boys. So I was on the sidelines for a ton of games growing up as a kid. And then I was the water boy at U of A for the Bears when my brothers played there. So I've been around this guy a long time. And yeah, to see him and still in the community and still, you know, I mean, there's a pretty close group of you old, you know,
Yeah.
Eskimos,
Old
we
is
can
right,
say.
yeah.
You know, you and Trent Brown and Fleming. And, you know, I just saw Rio Wells was in my
Oh, yeah.
store the other day, you know, and they're all like Rio's coaching on the West End
Edmonton,
Raiders, you know. So these are all guys that came to the Elks to play. And now they're still here giving back to their community. And their kids now are going to be dominant in the local football sports scene. So it's nice to see. You know,
Yeah.
Trent's like me. He's
Yeah.
got 3 girls. So
Yeah.
we're going to have the I don't know what market covered. But I guess, hey,
You
girls are
could
playing
revive.
football
You could
now.
resurrect the grads and have
There
a
you
starting
go,
five.
yeah.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
The basketball
And
team.
dominate the world.
Sure.
That's right.
The talent's there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So why have so many of you guys stay around? Like, is that still like I don't see that as much nowadays.
As they get married.
Well, now we've got the 1-year contracts, right? It's very difficult to keep that, but it's not impossible. You look at Winnipeg, what the Bombers have done, and that's what they've done is they've made a concerted effort to keep those guys in the community and to spread things around, and you know, and it's possible. In Calgary, even though they're in a bit of a lull right now, the Stampeders have always done a really good job of networking, getting those guys involved and connected into the business community and showing them the possibility. I mean, Calgary is not a tough sell, right? It's a
No,
beautiful
yeah,
city.
that's right.
You know, Edmonton's a little bit tougher sell because, you know, of how far north we are. But in historically, when things were going really well, that's what was happening, right? You would take a kid aside and say, hey, man, you know, if you play your cards right, you could have a great career here. You could pay your mortgage off while you're playing. And I don't think that people think that way as much anymore. I think it's more of a instant gratification. You know, you got all the thing, you know, the likes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's kind of people think differently now.
But
right?
I can honestly say, and I think this is a major part of what is happening to the CFL. I mean, the numbers are not what they used to be across the board. But there are no Ricky Rays anymore.
No.
You know, there are no
point.
Doug Flutie's, guys, Jeff Garcia, that would come in and be on the
3 years,
one
yeah.
team for an amount of time that made it feel like they were part of this team. I mean, it's a revolving door at quarterback, which is the position
Yeah.
for any team to get behind. And it's too bad. I mean, guys, you know, are all across the league now because they're on these 1-year contracts where you cannot, you know. But look at the successful teams. Like they've got guys that have been there for a few years so you can build. And you know, Jed, as a
You
player,
add delete. Just
I mean,
one or
if you're
two guys
leaving
a
and
year.
bouncing around and you got a new quarterback coming in and two new offensive linemen, there's no cohesion there. You know,
very
it's hard
difficult.
to make a team that's going to work when you're always shuffling the deck.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a huge, huge advantage to having the CFL rebuild their culture and rebuild their fandom. I mean, they're trying to do that with Green Day, hey? Being
I don't
announced.
mind
Green
that.
Day.
I
I
love
love
that
it too. Yeah,
but you know what? That's good because
Yeah.
we all agreed that we're going to watch that halftime.
Yeah.
show.
Oh, yeah.
We are
I'm
a
all
demo
over it.
they are looking for bad, right?
But just you think of that whole weekend, just musically. If you go
Carrie
to Hamilton,
Underwood,
you
yeah.
get Carrie Underwood on the
Oh,
Friday,
unbelievable.
and then you're going to get Green Day on the Sunday, which is a pretty solid act, especially for the Canadian Football League.
Yeah.
We were talking about it on the post-game show or pre-game show on Saturday because
On
it was
Saturday night,
announced.
yeah.
And like they used to have a deal with the NHL, and it was supposed to be like 2 years where they were going to do everything of the NHL, but they swore in the first one, and they never came back
I
again.
remember that.
The
And I was
NHL
like, oh,
gets
this is
in
a
its
little weird.
own
And
way.
like Green Day isn't Green Day anymore, like the 90s, you know.
We're not talking about Dookie.
You
That was
know,
the first CD I ever bought.
Great album.
their heights they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
But if they come out and play those classics,
Oh,
Like,
Basket Case better come out.
that's going to
I mean,
be unbelievable to
gonna be-
watch.
it's
And
gonna be fun.
I've yet to go see them live. I would love to see them live. I feel like they'd put on a great stage show.
Oh, for sure.
Presentation. That I think Grey Cup. It's going to be a lot of fun.
They played the All-Star game, right? That's what
I
you were
think that was
talking
the one.
about. And then they swore
And
a
they
couple
swore,
times.
and Gary Bettman's never allowed them back. Has never let them back again.
The
Like,
NHL
come on, man.
is just
Get out
Just
of
be
your
on a
own way.
delay
Yeah.
and be ready to to bleep it out. That's it.
yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah,
then bring
you
them
can
back.
beat each other's brains out, but just don't swear.
Yeah, don't
Right.
swear.
Okay, Gary.
Or gamble. Don't
Yeah,
gamble.
Right, but then you have
can
a
gamble
million
now.
betting commercials.
to a
Yeah.
degree.
Oh, speaking of gambling, it's good to know that Pat Mahomes is not in on the take. You know, there's no question that he is not gambling on himself during games because that kneel down he took in the final seconds of that game
Yep.
made a lot of bettors quite angry.
Yeah, and it was you don't see that very often, you know.
Yeah.
Take the touchdown, though.
But then-
what
but
are we
then
doing?
you give the ball
it's
back.
a 2-score game.
I was shocked when I saw
Okay.
that.
It's
yeah.
a 2-score game.
Well, in defense of Patrick Mahomes, my fantasy football team won because of that. Because I
you
was
go.
going up against Pat Mahomes, and if he
defense-
scores that touchdown, I lose.
in defense
We're excited.
of people that put their life savings on this game,
Yeah.
I
Don't
mean,
put your life
come on.
savings in sports.
You're obviously not
True.
a gambler.
On the
Well,
Monday
don't put
night
the
and
full
week
life
before.
savings.
Yeah.
I
No,
don't
but
know.
seriously,
That's-
Twitter was a buzz last night, or
Well,
X was a buzz because
I will
of
say
that.
these conversations are legitimately going to come up more and more, though, because Sean McVay at the beginning of the year, first
Yeah,
game,
kicking that
kicks a field
three-pointer.
goal
Yeah.
down, to the
Covers the spread.
covers the spread, and then people immediately go to, well, like, why did he do that? And one of the rationales I could see is maybe playing
Point
for
spread.
tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Where if you meet the 49ers, they will meet the 49ers later.
If it's a division
tight,
rival, if it's a division game,
Yeah.
then points come into play.
and
right?
now,
So-
okay, you have to win by less to win the season series type thing. So I get where maybe that's coming from. Pat Mahomes is the thing if the game's now just over. You got the W. You
Yeah.
don't have to worry about playing more football. It's
Yeah.
over. But the questions will arise
Yeah.
as we've embraced and welcomed gambling into our sports. Well, is he on the take? Or what do they bet?
Well,
and that
maybe he
question's
bet
going
against
to
himself.
come
I
up
don't know.
6 guys
over
are
and
suspended
over
for the
and
year
over.
because of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those 6 guys. Was it
Well, they
6, 7, I
they
think?
just
7?
announced that last week that they were
Yeah.
going to crack down on the penalties were
Yeah,
going to become
it's-
more
right.
I think
the
it's a
thing
year.
is
Which
like
is
for,
so silly, man. Like,
for so many years, Vegas was untouchable. You couldn't even think about putting a franchise there.
Yeah.
And then the Golden Knights went in, right?
Yep.
And then everybody was like, look at the support that team got. Like it's like a cult following, right?
It is.
Unbelievable. Like it's like you couldn't write like if you're looking at a how-to script for how to run a franchise and how to engage with the local. Those guys have been starving for a franchise for many years, right?
True.
That's an aside, but the fact that now they're in Vegas and everybody knows what goes on in Vegas and who controls that, that's, I mean, I'm old enough to remember the Alex Karras thing with the gambling when Pete Rozelle.
Oh.
Yeah, and so like I'm old, right? And that was like when they'll never put a team in Vegas, right? Because of that.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal.
you know,
right?
I know that story, but
Yeah.
just in case Tommy doesn't know it, why don't you tell that story?
Well,
Yeah, please do.
long story short, right? Like there was some betting going on, and so Rozelle was like and they were like baseball, right? The baseball, I actually would be the Giants are actually sniffing around Vegas right now, which would be if that happens, then you're just gonna have to put Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame, right? Like that's
Oh, you mean
it's
the A's?
ridiculous. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the Giants are in rough shape right now. And
The
they're
Athletics.
looking at- But Alex Karras bet on games. Him and the kid from Green Bay. It was a guy from Green Bay that did it as well. That both of them were suspended for the year. I think.
So that's around the Pete Rose era too. I'm assuming because like that was
just before that.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
Pete Rozelle was the commish. Yeah.
yeah. But
would've
Pete
been-
Rose like the suspension.
But they
and, like,
they
how
came
big
in with
that's
the,
all.
like they took the sledgehammer to the guy and then Alex Karras was like, well, fine, I'll get into acting, and then he had the great acting career. He did end up coming back to play, but the NFL has always been super heavy handed when it comes to those types of things. So it's very curious to see now, 50 years later, them going into Vegas and putting a franchise there. I mean, look at the Raiders, the building that they put
that's
together for
amazing.
that team, right? And so that's why, when you, especially the older direct generation, they're like, well, it's got to be fixed, right? Because there's no way that they would turn, fantasy football started it.
Yes.
Because people started betting and spending money playing fantasy football, and they're like, wow, look at all the money.
Right.
People
that's
don't
changing
realize
hands.
fantasy.
So the NFL's like, we want to get some more of that, right?
Sure
And
is.
it's unbelievable how much money changes hands, and somebody's making that money, so why not?
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
the NFL, and that's one of the reasons why the NFL does so well, because they do change and they do adapt. And we were talking about that at the beginning of the show, is that good coaches do that, but also good organizations do that. They change and they roll with the times.
I want to ask you about the posse because you would have been playing when they were in the league.
gosh,
Like, do you remember your first trip out there? and
Okay, buddy,
being
I
like,
got a
what the-
posse story.
Please, yeah.
Okay,
because
so we
now we're talking
played
about it.
Sam Boyd Stadium, which is
I
where
went and saw a game there.
UNLV,
Yep.
and they have dugouts there, right? And then they have like the big, how they have the big thermometer thing. It's pretty
Yep.
dramatic. It's like at the dials and stuff. It's like, so we get in there and we're there in June, dude. Like late, maybe mid to late June, and it was the only time we played down there. And I grew up going to Vegas because my grandmother lived there. My grandmother's husband was a professional poker player long before it was popular to be that. And so I was aware of Vegas, and I knew how hot it was there. And I was trying to tell the guys, like, listen, guys, like, it's going to be, like, you have never felt heat like this in your life, right? And so, like, yeah, whatever, Jed, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, okay, don't say I didn't warn you. So we get in there, and we go out for the pregame warm-up, and the wind starts going. And you know how when it's windy here, it gets cool? It's
Yep.
like, oh, yeah, great breeze.
It's a
But when
breeze.
it's 120 degrees, it gets hotter when the wind blows. It's like a hairdryer, right, going in
Yep.
your face, and it's got dust in it. And
Yep.
stuff. Our entire offensive line was on IVs at halftime.
Wow.
And because I played behind Benny Goods, who was not the paragon of conditioning, he played one series, and it was a preseason game, so he said, Jed, you got it. And I was like, I can't say what I want to say, but you know what I mean? I said, Benny, come on, man. So I lost 22 pounds in that game. All water weight. Yeah, and probably other stuff too, because I threw up a couple
Oh
times.
my goodness.
And it was so, I looked at the on the field, because it's hotter, because that was like that carpet stuff that we had.
Yeah,
was there.
AstroTurf.
It was, because we were looking at the centigrade thing. It was, if I remember correctly, 54 degrees in our dugout. It was so hot. Like, it was dangerous. We had guys falling. Blake Dermott was out. He tapped out early. Rod, I think, was the only guy that made it through the whole game. The rest of the O-line was like, yeah, no, I don't want anything to do with this. So
That Sam Boyd Stadium, the one thing I noticed, Jed, was when I went to the UNLV BYU game there, it's street level. They didn't dig it down.
no, they
so
didn't.
all that
It's
dust
all above,
is coming
so the
from
wind just comes right through.
Yeah.
And it just, so he, like, if it would have been like here in Commonwealth, the brick field at Commonwealth,
Yeah.
it's dug into the ground.
Yeah.
So if it's windy, you get a little bit of respite
Right.
there in the bottom of the field there, the bowl. But man, there it just goes right. And it was so hot. I've never been so hot. And I wear hearing aids, right? So if I sweat, I have to take them off because you're just going to get wet, right? And I won't be able to hear. So I have to. It makes me work a lot harder because I can hear a little bit when I've got them on the field. The hearing aids I wore back then were in-the-ear hearing aids, and they didn't have a lot of power. So, I would wear one just so I could kind of hear the audibles. There were no audibles, so I was just kind of going on. I would, and then if I close my eyes, I'm Helen Keller. But I was having a really hard time that day because I was struggling. And yeah, it wasn't fun. I was glad when that game was over. They had a lot of talent. That Tamarick Vanover, Gary and Hagen was there. He ended up coming to us the next year. Anthony Calvillo.
Yeah.
They actually started 3-0. People don't remember that. And then they lost the rest of their games. But and Ron Meyer was just colorful guy there ever was. He was at SMU when they got the program.
Oh, when they got canceled. Yeah, that's right.
He was
that's
a real flashy guy. Jeff Reinbold was their special teams guy. He ended up coming to us the next year.
Jeff Reinbold.
He's still kicking.
He's still around,
man.
He's still doing it.
Yeah.
Still around. Yeah, we keep in touch. His son's name and my son's name are the same because Jeff lives in Hawaii.
Yep.
Kekoa?
My son's name is Kekoa. Yeah, his son actually was born here.
Oh, wow.
And he named him Keikoa. So
That's cool.
And I didn't know that. Like, so when my son was born, he messaged me, "Hey man, my son's name is Keikoa too." I was like, "Oh wow, hey, small world, Jeff. Nice hearing from you." So, but
yeah, I remember getting to Sandboy Stadium. We watched that one game. I'm like, this is where the Posse used to play.
Yep.
And that was the first thing that hit me. I'm like, this stadium in the summer would be terrible.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And so when I would go, I would visit my grandmother with my dad. We would go to the finals rodeo every November.
Cool.
So much fun, man.
Thomas and Mack Center, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I got food poisoning there going to watch that preseason tournament. I will not get into it, but it was not a situation like Mike Sellers. I'll just confirm
food poisoning's horrible.
Yeah, it sucked.
Horrible.
Yeah.
I think the Posse's last game was in Edmonton.
Yes, it was.
Did they have to
And
move
it was
it
a
up
home
here?
game.
And they like raided all the equipment and stuff.
Yeah.
What?
So, yeah.
Dave told me this story. JMO's told me this
Yeah,
story.
it's a great story, and J-Mo tells it far better than I. But the one thing that I remember from that game, it was the home game for them
Yep.
because the league was like, you know what, we'll bring them up here, we'll do it all up here. They can wear the home jerseys. We wore our away jerseys.
Cool.
Opening kickoff, we kick it deep. Tamarick Vanover takes it, and he just goes right up the house. And the thing I remember about that kickoff return was number one, Tamarick Vanover was fast, right? And he was running, and Dan Murphy, our starting safety, is about 9 yards behind him. And right when Tamarick Vanover is about 10 yards away from the end zone, Dan dives. So we're watching the film the next day, and we're all sitting there. And God bless him, our special teams coach was like, "Dan, you do realize that your velocity decreases as soon as you leave your feet, right?" So he just back and forth for 5 minutes. Finally, like, he just buried the kid in meetings. It was so funny. But I mean, like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
Like, the guy's already scored.
He's just making it look like
And
he's
then
giving the
I
effort.
tried.
right?
And then-
I almost had him.
Yeah.
And then he held his hamstring, like he pulled his hamstring. It was back in 3 plays, like like the kids do in Adam football.
Right.
It was awesome.
I'm okay. Oh my god. So what? So
But they, like,
rated-
at the end of the game, they weren't going to take the stuff down. So like everyone raided all the equipment and stuff
Yeah, they did.
because it was the full team frat folded.
Wow.
Like they knew, so like everyone was grabbing stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
And
Take what you can, get the heck out of there. A lot
Wow.
of that stuff's selling on eBay for pretty good.
I would buy
Helmets
so
and-
much of the CFL USA stuff. If I could find some of those things.
That
And
would be
that's the
good.
thing I think the CFL misses out on money wise. The Ryder store in Regina used to sell this, but just shirts of the USL USA teams.
Yeah.
Like go retro, sell all of them, include the US teams in there
Yeah.
because I'd love to
You can
buy a
buy
couple
that
of those.
stuff online. They still
Yeah.
sell it. They
Yeah.
have the Mad Dogs. You can get Mad Dogs T-shirts online.
They
There's
should
a
just
couple.
do it. They
'Cause
should
there's
do
no
it
trademark
fresh.
on it anymore, right?
Right.
So it was the Memphis Mad Dogs,
the
Birmingham
Posse,
Barracudas,
Shreveport,
Shreveport
Sacramento
Pirates.
Gold Miners, San Antonio
Texans.
yeah, and
Who
then,
just won our
Baltimore,
CFL Fantasy League.
Baltimore.
Right.
CFLers.
Miami Manatees was announced but never
worked,
played.
Yeah.
I
The
did not
Manatees
know
had
that.
one of the worst logos ever you'll ever see.
Yeah, I'm glad that didn't go through.
I'm trying to
Who do you think of when you hear the Sacramento Gold Miners?
K. Stevenson.
Michael Oliphant.
Did we say? Well, we were just talking
Yeah,
about
we
it.
were talking about
Posses.
that.
Thanks for
Michael
listening.
Thanks, Eric.
Michael Oliphant. He was good. He played for the Redskins, actually. He was
Really?
really good, yeah.
Who was the quarterback?
Archer.
Dave Archer.
Dave Archer.
Archer.
Wasn't he the guy that?
Yes, he
slammed
did.
the-
Yeah, he
slammed
did.
the ball
Threw
in his
threw
nuts.
the guy
No,
over the
Kerwin
table.
Bell.
Yeah.
What do you think of Kerwin Bell for that?
Kerwin Bell. Okay.
David Archer went
David
to the
Archer
booth
went after
and
the
then
guy
came
and hit
back.
him over the table. We had the table because I don't know whose brilliant idea it was, but they had cups set up on a table. You know, instead of like
yeah.
water bottles,
Yeah.
we'll just do individual cups. I think it was this Kate Stevenson thing. He was like, he didn't want people getting sick from cold, so we had this big card table set up with cups.
That's so
And Dave got
movie-esque.
mad and grabbed a guy from the throat and put him over this. It was like professional wrestling. It was brilliant. It was. I was like, I think if I didn't know better, I think that was scripted.
That-
you know, but.
US CFL era, how would you describe it living through it?
I actually was really, really happy. We had a team in Birmingham too. Birmingham
yeah.
Barracudas.
Yeah, that's right.
When we played Legion Field in Birmingham, like that's all Crimson Tide. You know, Alabama. They went back and forth between Birmingham and Tuscaloosa for years, right? And Birmingham is the old where Joe Namath played, and you could just feel the ghosts. Between the smell of mildew and it was an old building,
Right.
like just concrete. That for me, it was a thrill, and I grew up playing football in the States. I started playing football in Tennessee in the South.
Wow.
And they have a thing down there where if you're a college team or professional team, the state patrol will ride out in front of you and stop every intersection. You don't stop for one intersection.
Get the
And it's
escort.
like, whoa, like the VIP thing, right? Like I know we're just, there's only going to be about 50 people at the game tomorrow, but this is pretty cool, So, playing in the States was really cool for me because I got to see family. Family got to watch me play in Shreveport. My sister was living in San Francisco. And I remember being in San Francisco with Trent Brown, our safety. Him and I were roommates, and we decided to go to San Francisco with Doug Parrish, who now does some media work for the University of California. But Doug was from there. He went to Berkeley, and so he took us down there to his hood, and we ended up in Oakland, which isn't the greatest.
No, it
to
is
be.
not, Jed.
And this was in the 90s, when Cypress Hill and all this other stuff. And so we were standing outside some nightclub at 8 o'clock in the morning, and Trent was like freestyling. And the sun's coming up, and I'm like, we got to play a game here, dude, like at 5 o'clock, so we should probably get, so we ended up. And then we went on no sleep and we won. And actually, the first game, Doug gets hurt, so Trent had to play the whole game as a starting safety.
Ooh.
And we won. But those are the memories, like being in, and we're in Oakland, and I'm thinking, oh wow, boys in the hood, right? Like
Yep.
A little bit further north, but it's same vibe, And Vegas was fun, San Antonio, went to the Alamo,
It's smaller than you
Riverwalk,
think,
yeah.
isn't it?
And it's those experiences, like I just, it was unbelievable. I mean, you play in Canada, you play the same teams all the time, and I love Montreal and I love Vancouver and stuff. And then the one thing that I just laughed at and used to cackle was my other roommate was Larry Ruck, and he'd be like, "What do I have to do to get a cab down here?" And I'm like, "They don't do that down here, dude. Like everybody drives. Like cabs are like if you're in Shreveport, you're not getting a cab. You have to wait an hour to get one, right?" Like that's a Canadian thing, Every city here you can catch a cab in like 2 minutes, but down there that's not really a thing. I mean, Uber's kind of changed the landscape in that regard. It's easier to catch, a ride down there now with Uber, but before, man, it was really really hard, especially in the smaller towns. When we were playing in some pretty Sacramento was where Sac State played, and so it wasn't a great field. The Alamo Dome was really cool. The one thing I really remember was the showers because they built it for the basketball players, so the showers were like 9 feet. So I'm like, moving around. Poor Gizmo, right? He wasn't getting any water, right?
It's
so it came
cold
from
by
so
the time
far.
it gets
it's
there.
like rain, right? So it's really hard to rinse off. Giz, I'll pour some buckets on top of you if you want, if you need to, Oh man, poor guy.
We got Jed Roberts, Double E alumni, Jay Milne of the Edmonton Wildcats, Tom Gazzola, Matawanek with you here on the EST Hangout. You can get in touch, 780-218-9999. We'll take a short pause when we come back. Lots more to get to, including I see a book Jed brought.
Yeah.
And I'm very intrigued by this. So we'll get into the story of that. We'll talk some Canadian Football League. And Jay's going to sing us a song.
You're singing today.
Yeah, I
Are
don't
you
know.
going to sing us the Wildcat song?
I'll take this song, Wildcat song.
Yeah.
I have the video. I can show it to you.
better.
We'll
You
do
might
that.
not want me to sing it on the air.
Oh, but you were.
Hey, I'm deaf, so it doesn't matter to me.
And after the break, we'll tell the story that Giz told me about you on the road with the other deaf guy on your team.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. That's a great story.
That's called a tease in the business. You're tuned into the EST
So don't go
Hangout on
anywhere.
EdmontonSportsTalk.com and watching on YouTube.
The Nielsen Show.
Elks kicker Dean Faithful had that project management job.
Well, you're an adult now.
I was an adult. I'd grown up earning some money, and mum and dad were proud.
Yeah.
And I
Who's
went,
your son? He's a project manager. That's a big deal. Yeah.
he manages projects, which I don't know what that means.
No,
you know?
nobody does.
No. I think in my interview for that job, why do you think you can be a project manager? I said it's like making a sandwich. A project's like making a sandwich. You get 2 bits of bread, you get your meat, and you slap it together. And they were like that. And I think that's what got me the job. I was like, it's as simple as making a sandwich.
The Nielsen Show featuring Lieutenant Eric. Weekday mornings at 6, only on Edmonton Sports Talk. Join friend of EST, Guy Flaming, for The Pipeline Show, Monday nights at 8 and Saturday at noon, as he has you covered with CHL, CJHL, USHL, NAHL, NCAA, and U Sports, plus the World Juniors, Frozen Four, and NHL Draft on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Friend of EST, Eric Thomas, takes you around the track all the way to the checkered flag on Raceline Radio, Tuesday nights at 8 and Saturday morning at 9, only on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Catch up with friends of EST, Andrew, Mike, and Kayla, as they get you in the huddle with the Edmonton Elks on the Turf District, Thursday nights at 8, EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Tom Gazzola and Sean Bell take you on a hot lap around the NHL with Hello Hockey, Saturday mornings at 10, only on Edmonton Sports Talk. The Elks Call is the newest Edmonton Elks podcast located in Edmonton, discussing everything Elks. Join friends of EST, Scout and Catherine, Friday nights at 8 on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Get to know the winners, props, plays, parlays, and more with Nielsen and Hustler. Weekday mornings at 11 on The Lock Shop. Only on EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Get all the latest news and takes on everything Oilers with Dustin Nielsen and Tom Gazzola on the Oil Stream. Live at noon, Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. Only on EdmontonSportsTalk.com.
And we return here on the EST Hangout. Matt Iwanek, Tom Gazzola, who's cleaning his pants. Jed Roberts and Jay Milne with us.
Tommy looks pretty good today, hey?
Thank you.
Yeah, everyone's wondering where
This
he's
is a
going
real
today.
fall fit.
Well,
Speaking of drip.
No, it is. I'm glad the flannel's already out, but now I can't wear flannel.
You
for
know
like a
what
couple
you're wearing
days.
right now?
Tell me.
You're wearing
Pumpkin spice, yes.
You are pumpkin spice
And I
right now.
hate
Spice,
everything.
Tommy.
Yeah, but you know
PSO.
what? That's not the message you're sending. Like, we're getting it. We're receiving it loud and clear.
Yeah, amongst other messages,
Ouch.
you are definitely
You
sending
are
a strong
pumpkin
Okay.
spice latte
you look
vibe.
beautiful right now.
Thank you very much.
Like, I can
love
taste
that.
it right now. Like, I'm getting it. Like, I can smell it. Like,
The
it's just-
essence is there.
It's overwhelming.
Fantastic.
Well, he's got a heightened sense of
You
taste.
even matched
does.
it. You look behind you. Look at that.
I
You
know,
just matched
the
it.
copper. And I
You
did not
that.
think
Yeah,
of
that's
these.
you're one of those intentional dressers, aren't you?
Well,
It's first couple days of
least you know.
October.
I'll confirm that. Jed,
I'm gonna throw down on some pumpkin spice today.
Yeah.
People are gonna see it.
well,
They're
I
gonna
do
smell it.
enjoy the crowd that enjoys pumpkin spice lattes. Those
Yes, you
girls
do.
tend to be fun,
Yeah.
but you got to put
Good,
up with the
wholesome
PSLs.
church girls for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of the muffins, though, when I went to pick them up, okay, I said, okay, there was 3 trays of muffins. I said, I'll take 2 of each, And she said, but the pumpkin spice flavored are more. And I'm like, oh, good. Didn't leave them out. I don't want that crap in here anyways.
Yeah,
I'm not a pumpkin spice guy.
I'm not either, but I'm dressed
That's
like
Claire, you
like when
can't
you
say
go
I'm
into Tim Hortons and you say something like that. That's like swearing in church, dude. Like, you can't do that.
Well, hey,
Well,
man,
it'd be worse in Starbucks.
Yeah.
If you went into
Right.
Starbucks and said that, you were not getting out alive. People
Yeah.
are
No,
you're
going to
not.
kill you.
right.
so many mean
So-
looks.
Well, it's like if you cheer for the Chiefs and you're not a Swiftie, right?
Right?
Like
Right.
That's just getting tired. Like that.
that was last night. How
Did
many
you see
times?
who else
They were
was
showing
in-
Blake Lively on the screen. I'm okay with that.
Ryan Reynolds was standing in the background,
Yeah.
just hanging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and like, oh my gosh,
And Hugh Jackman.
what a and Hugh Jackman.
Wolverine
and
was there.
Yeah.
It's all on.
They're all
Taylor
tight.
Swift.
They're all friends and stuff.
That's cool.
Blake Lively and Taylor Swift are friends. So, husband of Blake Lively's Ryan Reynolds, who's friends with Wolverine and who's just recently divorced. So, him and Ryan Reynolds are hanging out a lot lately.
Yeah.
Let's go to New York and watch a football game.
Well, they live in New York. So,
Hugh
that
Jackman
makes
is
sense.
a huge Broadway guy. Did you know that?
like
Yes, he
going
is.
to
He's
shows
no,
or
quite
performing.
talented.
Performing in them,
Yeah, he's really
big
talented.
time. He said it like on numerous interviews, like that is his passion. Like Wolverine kind of came up and it's now who people know him as, but he's on like backstreet
accomplished
Broadway
actor,
stuff.
Wow.
There's
Going
got to be like a
regularly.
special, like an extra talent to be able to do the Broadway show.
Oh.
Because there's no cuts. There's no like you're full stage
And you're
performance.
saying
you got to know what
dance,
you're doing.
It's the
Operating without
original,
it.
like it's the
And-
earliest form of acting. Right?
And it's Broadway,
yeah.
so like you've got a crowd that's expecting an even higher level. And there's a lot of actors that do go to Broadway and spend a lot of time there.
You know, one thing that caught me off guard when I went to go see some of that stuff, like if you see an Andrew Lloyd Webber or whatever like that, the special effects, man, like the stage effects that they do, the stuff they can do, it's like, how do they do that? You know, it's amazing. It's one thing, yeah, that the actors are certainly talented, but it's the production that goes into it now. It's unbelievable. Like people talk about TV and, you know, all the stuff that they can do. They can do some pretty amazing things at those Broadway shows too. You're like, man, for me, I'm always curious about like how do people do those things, right? So that gets my brain going, and I can't concentrate on the show.
I want to go to. I haven't been to a Broadway. I've been to New York a million times. But
I've
never
done
gone to a
Hairspray
show.
there. It was really
Yeah.
well done.
Like just to go see one. Like
Yes.
I'd go see Spider-Man when they had it or whatever because I'm a dork like that. But just to go and see and say I've had that experience.
Yeah.
And I'm like you, Jed. I'd be like, how the heck did they do that?
Well, that's like I'm a big Cirque du Soleil guy. Like I love
yeah.
watching that stuff, and so there's a lot of production that goes into that, or even like the horses that when they brought
Cavalia.
the horses up, yeah, oh, unbelievable. You know, like I'm into that. Like I love that stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, people make fun of me sometimes, but I'm like, you know what? That's what I grew up with. My
Jed, it is
grandparents were really
beautiful.
big into that.
It's okay to say it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Hey,
So it's unbelievable.
Jason Strudwick has a season ticket package to the Citadel. So
I love the Citadel.
Citadel.
Yeah.
We go see a Christmas Carol, every year, and it's unbelievable.
My mom and I went
Loves it.
last year to a show. Like there was something I just saw. I was like, I want to go see that. It was like a Clue version type thing, and we went. We had a great time. There's a couple more shows coming up. We're gonna go. There's an Italian thing in January that you go watch. It's a nice theater.
It's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
intimate. You know,
Absolutely, and they do a great job out there at the Citadel.
I like
so.
the Jubilee Auditorium
Yeah.
too as well. That's a beautiful spot. No bad seats. in
Great
that place.
sound
Yeah,
there.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
Oh,
great for
speaking of-
concerts, and so is Winsper, obviously. Naturally.
Hey, I'll take your word on the whole sound thing. But anyway,
Oh, yeah. But boom. Speaking of great sound, Jed, and great visuals, and a great show, did you guys see that the opening of the Sphere in Vegas?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
The
I
U2
want to go
concert?
there.
I want to go to.
And-
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
And that's
That
a
was
massive.
incredible.
Like, there's a lot of seats in that place,
But
all
I
on
saw
one
a
side.
person do like the review where they make like a reel and it says, "Okay, these are the seats and views from the 100 level."
Yes,
The 100 level is the worst because there's an
you're not
It's
seeing
above
everything.
you. It's like being
Yeah.
in the front row.
That's
like, you know?
the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
The seats get more expensive in the upper
Because you get the
levels, the
whole
200 and 300 levels.
Wow.
Did you see the
Perspective, right?
visuals from that? I mean, my gosh, that was incredible. And to have you two playing with like a desert background and like
18,600 at seats, but it's all on one side,
Yeah.
right? It's not like a Rogers Place where it's the full place of
I
18,000.
could
It's
not
all
believe
pushed on
that.
one side, like a Jube type setting, all facing one way. And apparently, like with the visuals and the sound, it's all designed to hit everyone properly, almost.
Yeah.
well, it said like if you suffer from vertigo or you should not go inside that
Motion
place
sickness,
because
yeah.
it'll rock your world.
Wow.
Yeah. Hey, but I got a text from a buddy of mine during the break. His whole grade 9 class at Fultonville Junior High is they stream the Hangout on a regular basis.
Do they?
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Really?
I think he feels like they can learn more from the Hangout than they can maybe from their biology book or something. But shout out to Mr. Chill
Yeah.
out in Fultonville.
Good work. You're doing
Nice.
great work.
They're big.
I love
They
that.
were pumped to see that Jed was on the show today because they're all rough and tumble country kids. So
Which school?
Fultonville Junior High.
That's cool.
Boltonville.
I love
Shout
that.
out to
Yeah,
Fultonville.
yeah.
Oh, now we
Shout
got to
out.
be extra, even more careful not to swear. We just can't bring JMO on anymore. 'cause
Yeah,
he's the
don't
only
bring
one that
J-Mo
swears.
on. We're talking about how wonderful of a
He is a
man
potty
he
mouth,
is, which
isn't
he
he?
is, but he's
It's
a
nice
potty
to
mouth.
see him in his
did-
natural element, though.
We did day one of Edmonton Sports Talk, and like, look, we can swear, we're online, so it doesn't matter. But we're trying not to because of people like listening, like schools, if they're potential
Like the
listeners,
grade 9 Fultonville?
or
That's
if
right.
you're driving, with your kids
Kids.
and stuff. And day one, JMO drops like 3 swears in the first day.
3
Like,
S-bombs. Oh,
of
Dave's
course, you're the first one to do it, and like
Dave's running hot.
that's the
It wouldn't
Dave
be-
way.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
No,
Yeah.
it's the right way of doing.
Well,
it.
and I saw Dusty had sent something that said, there was a guy that was streaming this in his dental office. And he asked Dusty like early on in the, when this was just a new thing, like, are you guys going to be swearing a lot or is this, a one off? And he's like, no, trying to make it so that like,
Yes.
hey, my wife and kids can listen to this without having to worry about.
I still have yet to swear. I think
But
I'm the last one.
I think I've dropped.
They
one.
want the story, Jed. So here's the background of it. Okay, I'm in a golf tournament. It was Ryan Jesperson's golf tournament for the Julie Rohr Foundation, and out at what's
Was
the
it
one?
the Ranch?
The Ranch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we get up to the par 3, and it's the Elite Sportswear hole where it's called Beat the Giz. Okay, so it's beat the giz in a shot.
By the way, my buddy did it.
Did he?
And you get like a gold medallion that says beat
You get a
the
ball
giz.
marker.
That's cool.
So
He's a
beat
good
the
ball
giz.
credit, shout out to Ryan there.
Well,
Who's not listening.
When we came up, we're like, "What's this beat the jizz stuff?" I don't get it. And then you get up there, and it's like, "Oh, beat the giz." It's him actually. And so we get up there, and I say, "Hey, Giz," I'm good buddies with Jed. He was a coach of mine back in the day, and you got any stories that I can hold over him? And he's like, and I'll let Jed take over from here, but you need to know the emphasis and the exuberance that the Giz. I'm sure we've met him.
High energy.
He is high energy.
Yeah.
You talk about ADHD. That guy is a ball of it, right? So Jed, this is a story where I believe there was just a very unfortunate situation that happened to.
Yeah, I've actually got one that I'll piggyback onto that about him because since he brought this up.
Good.
But
It's
I'll
only
tell the
fair.
That's what I was hoping.
So one of my first years with the Edmonton Football Club, we had a defensive lineman named Michel Bourgeot, and he's an icon at Boise State. Played on their national championship winning team, I think, in '81. And he went on to be drafted by the Ottawa Rough Riders. I think he went to training camp with the New Orleans Saints. Then Ottawa brought him in, and then he played, I think, the first 3 or 4 years there. And then he came over here for '89, and then they had that 16-2 team here in Edmonton. He was a tall 6'6", very talented guy, but he wore hearing aids just like I do. So I wear hearing aids in both ears for congenital nerve defect. The nerves aren't fully formed in my ear, so when I take these hearing aids out, I can't hear anything. Like when I say anything, I can hear just a little bit. Like I can take my hearing aids out and be like in an EDM bar or something. I can stick my head in the speaker and it doesn't bother me, right? I can feel it, but I can't really hear it. So that's not to say that I do that all the time, but it is
just want to
fun.
dance.
Yeah, I just want to feel the vibes, right? So literally. And so Michelle and I were on the same defensive line unit. We kind of hit it off right away. Michelle's one of those guys that used to really anger the offensive line because it would be the day before the game. We would be doing the walkthrough, and he's going 100 miles an hour. And the O-line are getting so mad, like, Michelle, man, it's the day before the game. Knock it off. But he was super, super, like, he's what we call in the business a keener, right? And our equipment guy was in charge of room assignments on the road. And so Dwayne Mandrusiak, who was here for 49 years, should be 50, should have rounded it off to 50, but that's another conversation for another show. Decided to, Michelle and Jed have some things in common, so I'm going to put those two together on the road. So we're in Saskatchewan, and it was my first game, so they stuck me with Michelle, and Michelle and I are we're getting along, everything's going great, we're hitting it off, and we're talking, almost until midnight, watching shows. Like he's the vet, so he's got the remote, and neither one of us can hear the damn TV, so it doesn't really matter anyway. There's no closed captioning back then on those TVs, right? So we're just sort of watching the people's lips move and stuff. So then we go to bed. He turns off the light. The next morning, I get up. And I'm like, oh, and Michelle's sleeping. Him and I are just kind of, oh, whatever. So I look at. Holy smokes, man, look at the time, right? We're supposed to be in meetings. It's 8:45. We're supposed to be up at 8. So I grab Michelle, let's go, So we get up and we get dressed and we run downstairs and they're right like in the meeting. They're almost done with film. And the coach is like, where the hell have you guys been? And I'm like, well, nobody woke us up. And then they were like, oh, you guys are deaf. And so I looked at Dwayne. I said, Dwayne, man, whose idea was it to put the two deaf guys together? We missed the wake-up call. We never got a wake-up call. You can't wake two deaf guys up by calling, because what they normally do, can I get a wake-up call? The phone rings. Well, neither one of us can hear the dang phone, right? So
Giz said,
everybody just started laughing.
Giz said when they came into the room for breakfast, they all started clapping.
Yeah,
like
they
this.
were going like this with their hands without making any sound.
Not actually fully clapping.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Larry knew we were going to miss it, so he just kind of let it slide. He could have been a good guy and had somebody come up and open the door.
Yeah.
Actually had that happen to me in Brandon when I was testifying in a murder trial.
Jeez.
I was supposed to testify the next day, so I went back to the hotel, and I fell asleep taking a nap. And an RCMP in red serge, got the guy to open the door to come in, and he's waking me up, he's shaking me. And I'm like, whoa, oh, wow. So then he gets in, we go racing through town, and I run into the court and do my testimony. Wow. That's a long story, but I remember running in there, and the guy that I was there with was like, what, did you think that you were getting arrested for watching, Spectrovision or, inappropriate movies or something? And I said, well, for a second there, I was like, what happened? What did I do? I didn't, and then when I woke up, I realized I was there to testify.
Yeah.
But here's the story I want to tell about Gizmo.
Okay.
Well, I've been to hundreds and hundreds of schools all through I'm actually going to a school right after this. I might have to leave a little bit early to make it to Prince Charles School on the north side. But I used to do presentations about staying in school and reading week and all that. This week is reading week. So
yes.
I'm doing 2 schools today and one school tomorrow. And so Giz and I and Willie Pless and Benny Goods, I took them up to the Northwest Territories. And we went all the way up to Tuktoyaktuk, which is like on the Beaufort Sea. And you can see Alaska from... It's beautiful. And we went in the middle of winter. It was February, right? And it is like bone-chillingly cold there, right? In that time of the year. And, you guys have seen ice road truckers, right? So we actually drove on that river, the McKenzie River from Inuvik and it's like the drive from Edmonton to Calgary. It's a 3-hour drive, right? So we're in the RCMP cruiser, like it's a SUV. There's 2 of them. And me and Giz are in one, and then Willie and Benny are in the other one. And so Giz is like telling jokes, and most of them not appropriate to tell on this show, but he's like giving me a hard time, and we get to right where the river opens up in the delta, and it's beautiful. Like I have dreams about it to this day, and it's just white as far as the eye can see. And they have these things called pingos, which is like the peat gets pushed up through the permafrost, and it's warmer than the surrounding environment, so the steam comes up off it. So it looks like a volcano. It's just unbelievable. Like it's just, and you can see foxes sometimes running around, these white foxes. It's surreal, right? And so we stop, and the guys that were driving us were like the constables, and they were from the First Nation, like Inuit. And so they wanted to stop for a smoke break. So we stopped for a smoke break, and we get out. And this is before smartphones now. You got to remember this. This is 1997. And we're standing there, and we're just taking it in. It's just like, I can't describe how beautiful it was. Giz decides it's minus 35 degrees now. Keep this in mind. Strips down to just his boots, his Timberlands, and he starts sprinting off across the ice. And he's the only thing contrasted against this white backdrop, the white sky, because it's snowing, the snowflakes, the pingos, this white steam coming, and it is beautiful. And this muscular ball of like hate sprinting across the horizon. You can't see where the land ends and the sky begins, or the ocean. You can see it, and he slides. Shh. He said, Jed, look at me, Jed. And he's got nothing on, no clothes on at all. And then he realizes it's pretty cold out here, right? And so I said, let's get in the car, lock it. So we get in the car, and the guys are all in the car, and I get out, and he comes back, and he's like banging on, it's cold, Jed, it's too cold, Jed, don't you cold, dog, don't do me like this, Jed, don't do me that. You should have thought about that before you took your clothes off, Henry. And he came back around, and he was like pulling on the door, and I said, don't open it, and the RCMP guy is just killing himself laughing. And I'm coming in behind him, and I'm just winding up as hard as I can, and I'm just bap, bap, and you can see these big, giant, ashy handprints right on his gluteus maximus, right? I hit one on either side, and he starts to cry, and his tears are freezing when they come out, and he's like, Jed, and he's got snot coming out. Jed, it's so cold, Jed. No, man, I'm sorry, Jed. I didn't mean to do it, dog. Dog, it's so cold, man. Come on, man. It ain't funny, dog. And so finally, I said, yeah, let him in. So they put him in. And he got in the car, and he sat there for an hour with no clothes on. They probably had to clean the back seat. And then as we arrived, I said, Giz, are you planning to go in there with no clothes on? And he said, and I can't repeat what he said to me, but he was like, "No, man, forget you, Jed." So every time he tells that story, I'm like, "All right, Henry, I'm going to tell the story about the time you decided to take a dead sprint in minus 35."
Oh my gosh.
So funny.
Oh, I love that.
The Gizmo voice impersonation is perfect.
Spot on.
And then,
Spot on.
And then the fact that you cap it with Henry
Yeah.
is even better. It's just the icing on top and the cherry.
We're in the EST Hangout. Jed Roberts, Jay Milne, Tom Gazzola, Matt Iwanek with you here. Stay tuned to Edmonton Sports Talk throughout this month. Soon enough, we'll announce some merchandise that will be up for sale, courtesy of our friends at the Hive Product Marketing, our official merch partner of Edmonton Sports Talk, promotional products that bring the buzz. Be sure to check them out, thehiveproductmarketing.com. So, stay tuned this month. We'll have that announced at some point. This book, Jed, that you've brought, is this what you're going to be reading at schools for?
It is, yeah. It's something I kind of just sort of thought about as I was leaving the house because I was going to go to the school today. It's a book called Not Without My Teammates. Can't really pan in on it, but,
I can walk it up.
There you go. Matthew will literally
We do it old school here.
tell us about
you go.
Not Without My Teammates, Jed.
All right, so that's a book that was, there's a gentleman that travels around with the Grey Cup trophy, does basically all of Western Ontario to the coast.
Yep.
And his name is Jeff McWhinney. And his dad actually played for the Edmonton Football Club when it was on the 3 in a row Grey Cup winners. And so he's known as the keeper of the cup, Jeff is. And so Jeff is very, if you ever spend any time with Jeff, I don't know if any of you have ever met him. He's the guy with the white gloves that travels with.
I saw him for Terry Vaughn's thing.
Yeah, and he's
sideline.
he's a walking encyclopedia. He can tell you the names of all the father-son combinations on there, the other family, connections and stuff. And he's got great stories. And so he and I were at a CN Rail function where I was doing a football 101 or something like that for the business crowd. And we got to talking, and he's like, Jed, I wanted to bounce something off of you. I was wondering, what your thoughts would be on it. And he said, I was thinking about writing a children's book about the Grey Cup and about some of the people that, the historical figures in it, and just trying to have sort of a tie-in into one of the things that the Canadian Football League is really well known for is their willingness to be a little bit more progressive with respect to the quarterback position, You're thinking about guys like Jack Jacobs in Winnipeg. You look at Warren Moon or Chuck Easley. Some of these guys. These guys were trailblazers, and if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't see the athleticism at that position that exists, like a Patrick Mahomes, and those guys owe a debt to the guys that came before them. The NFL wasn't playing. I think the first guy that ever played at African American quarterback was in Denver, Marlon Briscoe. And he actually ended up getting traded, and they moved him to receiver. And that was kind of what they would do. There was this perception that quarterbacks couldn't, African-American quarterbacks couldn't do that. So Jeff was very aware of that, and he wanted to put something together with a little bit of a tie-in. So that was the idea. So the personalities he put in this children's book, he put me and my dad in it.
Nice.
And then he also put Cal Jones, who was in Winnipeg there, Noemi Kwong, and the first woman on the Grey Cup, who's on the board in Winnipeg, Dana Spring.
Oh, wow.
So, there's little bios in the back of it, but it's just a little cute little story. And also Jack Parker's in it.
Nice.
So there's a lot of, there's a pretty big Edmonton connection in there. Jack Parker's son, Jackie Parker Jr., when we went out to unveil the book out in the West End there at one of the schools, the name of the school escapes me, but a couple springs ago, we went out there, and my sons were there. And Jeff surprised me by giving a really beautiful speech that moved me to tears about, the connections and all the tie-ins and how my dad was on there. And actually, if you ever look at the Grey Cup trophy, the plaque from the 1993 Edmonton victory over Winnipeg in 1993 is right underneath the Ottawa Rough Riders 1968.
Cool.
Oh,
no
wow.
way.
So our names are, but what are the odds, right? That trophy's got
Yeah.
literally hundreds of plaques on it. They're actually now moving old ones off and putting new ones on, right?
Yep.
So they just ran out of space. And that's something that the Stanley Cup is doing right now, too.
Yeah, they take the ring
cool.
off.
Yeah, and that's the first thing people do is if you have a connection, a family, you go and you look. You try to find it, and then, you try to take a picture of it. It's hard to take a picture of it because you're looking right back at yourself.
It's so shiny. They redid the Grey Cup a couple of years. It looks really nice.
The way he had a lot of input into like what they did.
Yep.
And it just looks really sharp now. The changes he did, because the base before it was coming apart. And a lot of people, if you follow CFL and you're a really diehard fan, you probably already know this story. But when we won in '87 and then again in '93, Blake Dermott headbutted the trophy and broke one of the ears off. So I remember sitting behind him in the bus, and he went bonk, and then he popped it back out. I'm like, dude,
man.
like I didn't know you could do that. But that's one of the things about the Grey Cup that's different from the Super Bowl. They give the team the trophy, and that trophy, you know, my dad played in '69. It went missing, and somebody kidnapped it, and they found it in an airport locker. So that's why they have two trophies. People don't know this. One's in the real one's in the museum. The one that travels is the one that. You know, because so many people touch that thing. I've eaten Count Chocula out of that thing. You know, it's amazing.
'Tis the season.
Yeah, you know.
Canada got it right with when it comes to Stanley Cup and Grey Cup. They're just beautiful. They're iconic. Like the other trophies are nice.
Yeah.
But they lack that character that you get when you look at the class of the Stanley Cup and the Grey Cup.
Yeah,
Like the
the
Lombardi
Lombardi
Trophy's beautiful. Larry O'Brien Trophy's beautiful.
Yeah.
The World Series is all right.
Yeah.
But they don't have that class and that just that
Yeah.
little
That's a
extra
true
something.
cup, you know, like the
Yes.
Grey Cup. And it's you said a trophy went missing, and I immediately was reminded of a story from when the Golden Bears hockey won the CIS championship in it would have been in 05. I'm pretty sure it was in 05 when it was here.
Yeah.
And they played at Rexall. The final was
that
against
was
the
a great-
Huskies at
great game.
Rexall. And so I
Ben
was
Thompson, baby.
Benny Thompson, baby, 29. I remember that like it was yesterday. I was at the Bears football at that point, and I was also bartending at the Armory, which used to be Club Malibu, which you would remember, and the Armory, which you'd still remember because I saw you there a few times. I was bartending there, and that was kind of the thing, you know, at that point. I don't know what it's like now, but, you know, you'd like to have, you know, athletes from the school bartending or doing the door, because then all the teams would come thereafter, right?
Yeah.
So the deal was like, look, we need, you know, if these guys win, we want them to come here to the Armory. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. So I put the word out there. We went into the locker room after, and Chuck Pelk and I went in there. We snuck in there, and we were just having a hoot. And so we're like, boys, come on down. You know, we got tons of drinks on us. Let's come down and celebrate this. I'm not sure if you guys have seen the CIS men's trophy.
It's big.
It's beautiful. Like it has each of so every year that they win, it's the school's colors that are put on that, and it's big and it's heavy. So the fellas come in, you know, about 11 o'clock, and you know, we are the champions. It's beautiful, right? Well, the next morning, you know, bar clears every. You know, I get a call from I think it was Brad Tuchek. I don't remember if it was him or John Hobson. One of those two who played on the team. We don't know where the trophy is. Like, are you kidding me?
Whoops.
They're like, can you go and like get into the Armory and see if it's somewhere? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, so I went back to the Armory. One of the managers was there letting in the cleaning staff anyway. So here it was upstairs in the back corner by the pool table, just sitting there.
Yeah.
So of course, me being the mischievous one I am, I didn't tell him I found it.
Make him sweat.
I made him sweat. So I took that thing to my dad's office. He has pictures holding the trophy. I got pictures with it all around town. I don't think I told him for like 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah. And they were pissed.
Oh yeah.
Pissed but happy.
Right.
You know.
3 days is a long time.
That
It
is
was it was rather rude to do that.
Well, that put like
Funny though.
Impressive.
That's
Yeah.
great. That's like I would feel as an itch at some point to give it back. But
Well, there
like,
was.
To go, like,
I had to
3
resist it.
days
I had to
is,
resist
like,
it because it was just too good. Because they were stressing.
Yeah.
Because there is not a
totally.
duplicate of that.
No.
Like that's it. And that the history, you can see the history on it. Like it is weathered. It is beat up. Because it's a wooden trophy that just has risers on it.
A base is what makes it so heavy.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah.
The history from Edmonton because of how many times
'93,
the Bears have won.
The Edmonton, sometimes they would have like hockey games, like celebrity hockey games.
Yeah.
And so Edmonton Eskimos or football club, what do you want to call them, Elks, they played the Oilers alumni at Clare Drake. And after the game, because they bought the Grey Cup, it was there and everything, and Trent actually scored a goal and then rode his stick the length of the ice, pissed off some of the Oilers alumni. So he actually ended up just saying, you know what, I'm done now. I don't want to get beat up or whatever. So he strips out of all of his clothes. He says, let's go. And I was like, okay, cool. And then Blake Dermott had the cup. And we were just kind of getting, I think it was the middle of the third period. And Trent says, hey, Blake, can we take the cup? And Blake says, well, yeah, just make sure you get it to the office in the morning. Sure, done. So we take the cup. We go over to Moe's Sports Bar on the south side.
Yep.
We're walking in, and some guy goes, that's not the real Grey Cup. And I said, just for saying that, you don't get to drink out of it. Now beat it. Get out of here, guy. And he's like, oh, wait, that is the Grey. Nope, told you, you're done. So we went inside, party. I told those guys to lock him out. So he was like, hey, I want to go out. Yeah, I want to take a picture. No, you lost your chance, buddy. And so we took it from there to Barry T's we took it all over town, right? And this is long before COVID. Thousands of people were drinking out of this thing, right? And we had Windex and we were spraying it off halfway between, but whatever, right? So end of the night, Trent and I end up heading back home. I wake up in the morning and I'm like, because we lived in the same apartment complex, Park Estates down there in Ermineskin there. And I'm looking around. I'm like, where's the Grey Cup, right? And then I called Trent. I said, Trent, do you have the cup over at your place? He's like, no, I thought you had it. And I'm like, what?
No.
What? Oh, man. So I'm sobered up, right? I'm getting up. I'm looking around. I can't find it. Can't find it anywhere. Nowhere. So I'm looking around. I'm like, oh, man, now I got to – and I didn't want to call the Edmonton – brass, right, to say I would lost the cup. So I went out to the car, and it was sitting in the back seat of my Toyota Tercel, 1990 Toyota Tercel, and you could see it, bright as day, sitting upright, gleaming in the morning sun.
Beautiful.
Was it buckled in?
The car was unlocked.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. The stories that cup could tell, man. Unbelievable.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, Jed, because I knew you'd be on the show. Did you see what happened in the Alouettes game on the weekend? With that,
that was
kick,
genius.
What like Chad Kelly said, he tweeted out, he's like, if this is for real, like this is not.
You
good.
can.
So
why not?
Because like the simplicity of just being able to turn the downs or change the downs back in your favor.
As soon as that ball touches your foot, doesn't have to travel very far.
So it's because you are, and this is when we could use a good clip of it being cut in, but. So the player caught a ball, a swing pass to a running back. He went up to the line of scrimmage. That's the rugby rules, right?
He was behind the line of scrimmage. You can't do that in the NFL, but you can do it in the CFL.
And he kicked it over the line of scrimmage.
Has to go
covered
cross.
it, and now they get a new fresh set of downs. Yes. Because is this correct? Is this my understanding correct? Because he's the kicker.
Yep.
He can be the first person to touch it.
Yep.
He's an onside punter. Yeah. It's like how when you punt it,
your own kick.
Has that ever happened?
Nobody's ever thought to do it. I think maybe somebody a long time ago.
Can they just say like, don't do that?
Yeah, they'll probably throw a loophole.
That's kind of like lame.
Okay, but here's the thing: it has to be a perfect kick, and no defender could be around. Yeah. Because if there's any red black nearby, and they jump on that ball, it's their ball at that spot, right?
True,
and that's the risk of it. That play worked so perfect for Antwi and the Owls because it was 2nd and 18, and all the red blacks played so far deep.
If you look at the way that guy kicked it, it was perfect.
It was
just kicked it just enough.
But if you try that play and you kick it 4 yards, that's enough time for the Red Blacks to close in and grab it.
Yeah,
and that's it's a risky play, and I don't think you need to outlaw it because
that's like IQ 1,000.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
It's like it takes some stones to do that too. Like I mean that, and he recovered it like just barely across.
Yes,
across the line of scrimmage. So I don't like it. I don't. I think that's kind of just. I mean, it's gamesmanship, I guess, but it just seems a little bit lame.
Watch when that team does it and they doesn't work and the other team grabs it.
Yeah.
And that's going to then people stop doing it again.
How many times has the CFL been mentioned in NFL broadcasts lately?
Quite a bit.
Because of the motion that the Miami Dolphins run.
Who was it that was talking about it? The quarterback,
Troy Aikman.
Yeah, he was talking about the
and then just yesterday, Daryl Johnson.
All that RPO stuff. We've been doing that. Doug Flutie was doing that in 1993.
Yeah.
Like that's like and spreading the 5 receiver sets. That's all we were doing that. Way back.
Well, and the idea of now being able to use motion in the NFL, it's just that it's lateral motion.
They're trying to allow the receivers to do waggle motion. The difference between conventional motion and waggle motion is waggle means you're moving forward, And that's one thing you can't do in the NFL. You can't move forward when you're doing your motion. But there's a bit of a groundswell right now, and that's what Troy was talking about, was allowing the waggle motion, and that would open up the passing game. Because one thing you look at a guy like Ray Elgard, from a standstill, he's not that fast. But when he's got a full head of steam, there's nobody that can cover him, right? He's too big, he's too physical. Imagine Travis Kelce running a waggle motion. It's not fair.
Good night, Irene.
Those guys. So that's something that could come down the pike. Maybe not have it be like the one thing they'll never deviate from is that they won't allow you have more one guy in motion.
Unlimited almost.
So what they could do is have one guy can go in motion, but he can waggle. And that would open things up in a way that, think about being a defensive back and trying to cover Travis Kelce with a full head of steam. It's not happening.
And I don't think they could go full waggle in the NFL because the offenses will never be stopped.
Yeah,
I don't think.
But that's what
I
they're
couldn't
trying to do.
imagine.
Is they're trying to promote.
if
that's what people like to see. Is people like to see scoring and.
We're seeing all the rule changes that they've implemented to create more of a passing game.
Yeah.
It's working.
But if the CFL went to 4 downs, and with that field and the way, there's no stopping. It's going to be so simple. Offenses will only stop themselves in the end. It'd be so hard for defenders to do it. In the NFL, if you had more of those receivers, like Tyreek Hill giving him that full waggle.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Good luck.
Good thing you didn't play at that time.
No way. They were showing something on Countdown yesterday morning about Raheem Mostert, Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, they're all fast.
And
Mostert's fast.
Achan.
Yeah.
Those guys are all running over 21 miles per hour on the field.
Yeah.
All 3 of those guys ran Div 1 track
NCAA
at their schools.
Mostert's the fastest. 10.13.
Just got to stay healthy.
Smoking fast.
Yeah.
Achan was had a school
I have
record
him on
in
my
the,
fantasy team.
in the 200
and I
yard.
sat him for 2 straight weeks.
Oh, you sat him for this
I'm a
week
moron.
too?
Which
I have
one? Who
no
did
idea
you-
what I'm doing. I still won.
Achan.
I have Mostert, but he's starting.
Yeah.
I've been starting him these weeks. So
Mostert didn't have as good of a week,
no,
did he?
No.
but I still
But
won
Achan
because
did.
Patrick Mahomes came short.
You know what's
So
a good
thank
feeling,
you
fellas?
again, Patrick Mahomes.
You know what's a good feeling? Having 2 players on your roster on Monday night, like
Yeah.
I do, but I don't need them because I've already won.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
Oh,
hey,
there's more of that
Come on,
Jay Milne
boys.
drip.
Come on, boys, let's hear it.
Swagger.
Wow, hey, having a receiver named Brown on your team from the Eagles doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
He went off, did AJ Brown, against my Commanders. My daughter and I were watching that. What a game! I don't know if you guys watched it, but the Commanders scored with no time on the clock from the 5-yard line to push it into overtime. It was incredible.
I watched a quarter and a half of the 49ers Cardinals game, and after McCaffrey scored his 3rd TD, I was like, well, he just killed the
I have
Cardinals.
McCaffrey on my
It
team.
was over. Yeah, you had a
40
wonderful
points, yeah.
Sunday.
Did you
then,
see
I'm
his
assuming.
touchdown where he like hurdled the
Yeah.
guy and then just didn't even break
was
stride?
unreal.
Yeah.
That guy is a freak.
Yeah.
But you got him and Debo on the same team. So
Yeah,
and Debo didn't have much of a
Debo
day
didn't do
yesterday,
anything.
so-
As according to
McCaffrey
him.
did everything. Like as soon as he scored that one where he leaped over the DB, I was like, it's over. Like this guy's just killing them. And then they got the next possession and he scores another touchdown receiving. And I'm like, I text Hernan Salas. I'm like, well, enjoy the victory. Like I'm done watching this game. I know it's over. Good luck, Josh.
Do you guys have an NFL fantasy league in house here?
No.
Just
So
the CFL.
me and Dusty are in one that's a 16-team league, 5 keepers. So
wow,
it's a
that's a big
difficult league. And this is one now. I'm putting up points, but I'm only 2-2 now. But then we also have me and Eric and his brother Lucas and a buddy from the Bear, Scott McCord. We have a CFL fantasy football league.
Yeah,
the Junior White House.
Very passionate about this
And
league too.
it is. We had our championship this weekend, and Lucas became the 4-time champ, and Eric has never won in our 9 years of doing this, 8 seasons.
That's a tough look.
But it's the CFL one is so much fun. I have more fun with. I've done NFL fantasy probably since 04, 05. I've had a great time with it. The CFL one, I don't know. It's so much fun. We have a Canadian position, so you have to play a Canadian. And
Nice.
this week, Lucas
That's a
actually
great
just
idea, yeah.
he just put in Tyson Philpott because he needed Canadian. Like
a
smart
he's
move,
having a
grabbed
good year,
Philpott,
yeah.
came and got a touchdown.
Yeah.
But I love it. It's the CFL. The CFL needs to find a way to get this done where it's not daily fantasy. It is like the NFL full fantasy to get people interested in this game because it's
would.
4
If
or
you-
6
If
teams.
you opened it up like that, you would.
They didn't
And it's
have
not
this,
hard.
They didn't have anything to do with CFL fantasy till like halfway through the season this year.
Ugh.
Was when they were like starting to promote it.
Yeah.
It's like, where was this
But then it's
2
still
months
the
before.
daily, and the dailies or like the weekly is not the same as you draft a team.
Yeah.
You can make trades. You have to deal with the waiver wire, and the CFL has to find because Dusty did it this year. He created a 6-man league, and he had a great time with it. Like he had so much fun with it, and like it's
Thanks for the invite.
find a way for his league.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
he's
well, it's
very-
not a fun league. My league has a waiting list of people that want to get in, and we're very very careful.
It's kind of an exclusive league.
You can keep me off your
Once the 10th team comes in the CFL, we will add a 5th team.
Hey, let me ask.
You have to provide 3 references.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going full bribery.
Yeah,
Like there's 4 of us. You
They
have to
accept
bribe
bribe.
us fully
Yeah.
if you
You
want
have
in
to
on this
submit a
league.
tape.
All on Insta.
Get that drip out there.
I want to ask you about your NFL fantasy
Okay.
because you said you had 5 keepers.
Yes.
So our fantasy, which has been going on, this is year 13.
This league has been going for 29.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
We have 12 guys in our league,
Okay.
and it's an 18-round draft.
Wow.
And you're allowed to keep up to 2 keepers.
Okay.
But there's a caveat with that because it's kind of, in my opinion, that's why I want to ask you
If
about
you
your
got to
keepers.
go, then
Yep.
it was
Jed-
great having you, and hopefully we could have you on another. No, it's the point of people. Part of
this
this
is the
is
hangout.
come and go.
Come and go.
Come and go.
That's for you guys.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, you better
Sweet.
sign
Well,
it.
thank you.
Yeah, I'll sign it.
Come on, sign it.
Joke's
We
on
can-
you. I don't know how
That's
to read, Jed.
fantastic.
That's okay. I'll come back and I'll read it.
But he
to you.
sure,
Perfect.
he sure looks good.
We have
Hopefully
to
we
have
can
you
have
back.
you
You can
back.
sit on my lap, all right? As long as you wear that pumpkin
Dumb
spice
and pretty,
outfit.
hey? Yeah,
okay.
it's perfect.
Jed,
I might take
appreciate
you up
this.
on that.
Thank you very
Jed,
much.
thank
We'll have
you.
you back at some point.
Jed
and,
Roberts, former Edmonton Eskimo champion. Thanks
Alumni.
for coming
See
in.
you, Jed.
Alumni, yeah.
buddy of Dave Jameson.
I'll find that out on my way up.
Oh,
Please do.
That'd
Yeah.
be great.
Yeah, YouTube
Thank
travel
you.
get you a Sharpie.
They can store it
fun.
beside the conches.
That's right.
We'll find a spot for
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
So our
But,
keepers,
yes.
okay? If you have a guy, let's say you draft a guy, a rookie, in, say, the 7th round.
Yes.
If you want to keep him on your next year, it costs you your 3
have to go
rounds
early?
ahead.
Okay.
So it costs you your 4th round pick.
Don't mind people
Oh.
watching on YouTube, by the way. I'm just zooming in our camera.
So essentially what it does is it makes you not be able to keep anybody in the first 3 rounds. So there's nobody able to keep Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce or
So there's lots of movement.
there's
with the big,
always
with the big guys.
and it actually elevates your need to know like who the top rookies are or who some of the late round steals are, because we had a guy that drafted Justin Herbert in I think like the 12th or 14th round. So he's now on his 3rd year of keeping Justin Herbert.
Yeah, because it just keeps going up 3.
It cost him his 11th pick, his 8th
And then-
pick.
yeah.
And next year it'll cost him his 5th. But I mean, that's still good value in that
So he's still
round.
got 2 more years, probably.
Yeah.
Because 5th, then 2.
But are you traditionally keeper? Well, I don't know.
We're
if you
we're
keep-
just keep 5. There's no rules to it,
and you can keep them like,
For
this
as long
is-
as you want.
long as you want.
and
Yeah.
it's difficult. And
Who's
like
there
I've
to
built-
draft?
There's no one.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like people, there is a weird part about the league, and everyone wants draft picks, but in the end, it's like the opening of the draft. You've got the top 3 or 4 rookies that are going to get picked easily. And then there's usually maybe 1 or 2 guys that slip through that then are drafted. And then it's just, you're
Yeah.
trying to go through and you're trying to find people. I've now, like for years, I struggled with keepers. I just couldn't build my team enough. Now I have keepers. I have St. Brown. I have Cooper Kupp. I had Keenan Allen. Devontae Smith. I had Justin Fields. I ended up having to cut like J.K. Dobbins and Cam Akers. So like
Wow.
I built like enough of a team that now, okay, I've got my stable. But then you get to the draft, and then you're drafting 16. And we go 13 rounds in the draft. You get to our 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th round of our league, and you listen to who's being picked up.
Yeah. You know what you should do? Do a money round in those later ones. So each
see, I
guy
can't
throws
do
an
that.
extra
I
20
can't.
bucks in
See.
for like the 15th
No.
round, and whoever scores the most points in that gets the money round pot.
Here's the problem. Like, oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like guys can pick a defense in that round or a kicker,
Yeah.
and you could have a breakout
like that.
player. It's a fun way to keep it a little bit exciting later in the draft.
This league, I'm in the Rusty Truck Fantasy Football League, or Kenny Kicks, if he's listening, he'll get mad at me and fine me if I don't mention it. It's all money, like too. So every trade you make, every move you make, add, subtract outside of the draft, you got to pay. And
Oh, wow.
I'm very cheap. So I've been
Say
trying to
frugal.
moneyball this. I've
Yeah,
been trying to.
frugal's the
No,
way to
I'm
say it.
cheap. We'll go with that
Frugal
one.
sounds-
I've been
all
trying to moneyball my way into something, and it hasn't worked at all. I have
How many
not
times
won.
have you watched Moneyball for inspiration?
I've never watched it for inspiration, but I'll watch Moneyball any day.
I've never seen it.
It's all right.
But
It's all right.
I've read it.
It's a great book.
Great
Yeah,
book. The
I've
book
never
I
seen
enjoyed
Book does
more.
it better. Movie's fantastic. I ruined it for Dusty though once. I remember we were doing the morning show at the old place. Eric was off. It was either a stag or after his wedding or something. And
How do you
I
wreck
said,
that?
I don't want to ruin Moneyball for you a little bit. He's like, yeah, you can't wreck Moneyball for me. I was like, how do you wreck Moneyball? I was like, okay, well, the story is, David Justice, he was upset that he had to pay for Coke or Pepsi or whatever it was. That's not true. That didn't actually happen.
In the vending
Oakland
machine.
DAs did not force their people to pay for pop. And Dusty was rattled at that point. The final segment we have on the show, he was stunned that like parts of Moneyball were
Inaccurate.
Well,
or fabricated.
Jonah
if you will,
Hill's
and stuff.
character was actually like 3 or 4 different employees.
People. Yeah.
Yeah, and the name was different of the main employee.
Yeah.
that they were
Well,
trying
and it's
to
not like
acknowledge.
it's not unlike them to glamorize things
Right.
like that, right? Or stretch the truth. But I just realized if you're a hockey fan, this was a really bad show for you.
Moneyball.
No,
or this one.
the Hangout.
Oh no,
today.
I'm disappointed you
Don't
mentioned
worry, we
that
have-
because a little bit ago I was realizing like we actually haven't mentioned it at all once.
This
Like we
is
hasn't
not-
come
I
up.
thought it's
But-
been a fun show.
Well,
You and Jed have
absolutely.
had too many great stories that
But
it's like, okay, well, I don't want to shift away from that.
And that's fine with me because this city gets enough hockey, to be honest.
It's still
Jay.
preseason.
At noon, we've got a fresh episode of the Oil Stream coming up.
See, there you go.
Tom Gazzola,
That's why-
Dustin Nelson.
teed
They'll
it
get
up.
you set
That's
for
why-
Oilers, Kraken. There's only 3 preseason
Yes.
games left tonight, Wednesday, Friday. On Friday, we'll have an Oil Stream pre- and post-game show with Tom Gazzola right here on Edmonton Sports Talk. They'll get
Pumpkin
you set
spice
for that.
Gazzola.
Hey,
Pumpkin. PSL Gazzola will be in. But no, like this is the final week where I think for the most part we cannot really talk Oilers.
Yep,
Yeah.
sure.
And then come Monday or Tuesday next week, because it'll be Thanksgiving on Monday. Once Tuesday rolls around, it's go time.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do something fun because I'm obviously the least hockey-minded person here. I would say, what's the high end for the Oilers? I mean, obviously, I guess
Stanley
that's a
Cup.
stupid question. What's acceptable?
See, I think
third round Stanley Cup final.
I think conference
Show.
final appearance,
Yeah.
winning at least 2 games.
Yeah.
Really? So you think they can make the conference final and lose and it still be a success?
I would still. I think there's a lot of people that won't.
I won't. I think
But
Stanley Cup
I
final or
think-
bust.
I think
A lot
as
of
long
people
as
are
if it's
with
a
you on that,
series
Jay.
that goes 6-7 games, depending who they lose to, depending how they lose.
Yeah.
I could live with that because it's hard to get to a Final Four.
And is it Vegas or Colorado or is there a newcomer in?
I think those would be the top
Yeah.
2. You could throw maybe Dallas, maybe could find a way
I don't-
into there.
Dallas, I don't know. Man.
LA
Like,
would be another team, but you're not meeting them also.
Yeah. I
Unless
feel like
somebody gets in the
Dallas
wild
is an
card spot and
overachiever.
comes the other thing. So
who's a maybe I could talk to Dusty. We can get a cool bet future going here. But who would be a future out of the Eastern Conference that maybe not one of the top 3 that people would suggest right now, but maybe someone outside of that you could get good value.
okay, can I throw a team at you and
Yeah.
you tell me if this would fit in this? Because I don't know if they would be in the top 3 right now, but I
Yeah.
think they're not far outside of it. The New Jersey Devils.
I was
Definitely.
That's who I was thinking.
Are they in the top 3 right now?
Just don't know.
Well,
I
they
don't
had
know.
a monster year last year, so they're on people's radar.
Would you put them in the top 3, or am I now cheating and already have
Boston,
them a
I
little
don't
too
think
high?
will be there.
Do you think the
Tampa
Maple
should
Leafs
be-
are in the top 3?
Yeah, I think so. Like,
So Leafs, Carolina, Panthers. Is that
are
a fair
are
top
the
3?
Panthers, like, they didn't have a great year last year. They had a nice run.
So who's your team?
My sneak up and coming pick that Jay was kind of describing would be the Buffalo Sabres.
Wow.
What
Fun.
would the Ottawa, like, are the Sens close
Ottawa's
to that too?
kind of getting there, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I think Buffalo is just a little bit ahead of Ottawa on the trajectory. That's
Yeah.
from a distance.
I think
Listen,
just New Jersey would be.
New Jersey. But
They
they're
had a good
on
year last
people's
year.
radar, yeah.
Can they? Is that a one-off, or can that be sustained?
I think
right?
it's
And
sus-
sometimes we have
yeah.
those teams that come, they have the one good year, then it comes back down, and then it's like, okay, well, it wasn't sustainable. So-
And that's why I'm looking at Florida going, well, what was that team? Like, they barely made the playoffs. They were a phenomenal team the year before. Are they somewhere in between Stanley Cup final appearance but barely make the playoffs, and then really good regular season team and lose to, I believe, Tampa 2 years ago? Like, there's a good team there, but they had a big shakeup, and it worked out. Kachuk's a great player. They have some excellent pieces. How does their goaltending hold up? Is it Knight? Is it Bobrovsky? Is Bobrovsky playoff Bobrovsky for 82 games or the course of the regular season? Who knows? Because he can be Jekyll and Hyde. So they have the elements of a great team. But like when Jay's describing an up-and-comer team like that, I'm starting to
Sabres.
think Buffalo.
They're the Oilers
That
from
is-
just a few years behind
yeah.
type thing.
I like futures. I love futures bet. I have a future right now in. Well, I don't even. Well, I'll say it. Whatever. On the Detroit Lions. Actually, I know. Okay, thank you.
Knock on the wood.
Well,
and you're good.
someone's wearing their Lions hoodie zip up right now.
Yeah, Dusty, you hear that?
Wildcats anymore? Or your season?
We finish our season next week.
Next
we
week.
take on it's a home and away against the Colts down in Calgary. So that'll be at 1 p.m. And getting that win was so important for me. So many reasons. There's a lot of younger players on our team that hadn't obviously won at this level. Our head coach has not won at this level. I have not been a part of a winning game since I joined this organization. So it was a pretty emotional night on Saturday, and raucous crowd, really raucous locker room. I'll have to show you the video.
Yeah.
It was fun, and you know what? I really look forward to doing that more often.
Winning's fun, isn't it?
Winning
As
is
we
so
know.
much
You've made some signings today that
Yeah.
will help in the future.
Huge, and
We'll
that
get that
is fine.
video
Robert's
to you, and
boys,
it's done.
That
it's
is
just
fine.
I saw the handshake. We have the
Tampering.
video.
Yeah.
We'll
It's
put
gonna
that
happen.
aside.
Thanks for coming and thanks for the lattes. And
Yeah.
Hey boys,
we'll have
I
you
really
again.
enjoy this. Let's do it. Let's do it sooner than later, and maybe I'll bring my pumpkin spice outfit
Please.
next time, or we can at least. I'll text
You guys could
before.
coordinate.
Yeah,
let's
we'll
coordinate.
coordinate.
one
Sure.
of you could be
Yeah.
the pumpkin, one of you could be the
Absolutely.
spice, and you guys could.
I'm also
We'll
wearing
figure it out.
socks for the first time,
Yeah.
like full-length socks. I know this is people have sent socks in. Larry, I'm thinking of Larry who brought some in to the EST studios, and then my mom sent some from Italy.
Oh,
And people are like, Tom needs to wear socks. I'm wearing socks. It's now the calendar has flipped to October.
I mean, the socks are such an important part of this outfit. To be honest, like they're really good.
They match pretty good.
They are
They
good.
match pretty well.
This
Good
is
job.
quick. Thank you
Good
very
job.
much.
Did you have a text you wanted to
I
read?
have a couple of texts to wrap up. Jason of St. Albert points out the Edmonton Oil Kings won 8-5 yesterday, regular season game at Rogers Place. Yes, good to see. Oil Kings looking to have a much better year. And then Jasmine with this one. You guys are the crazy sphere in Vegas.
Oh, thank you. And you could be more like Jasmine because she's into the draw to join the EST Hangout. If you want to be in the draw to join the EST Hangout, you just got to subscribe to the EST podcast and whatever podcast platform you follow. Subscribe to the YouTube channel of Edmonton Sports Talk and send us a picture to 780-218-9999 of those two things. And you could be like Jay and sitting in one of these chairs one day in the Hangout. Also a chance to win a seat in the Hangout. This Thursday, Century Casino Sports Bar, the whole gang of EST will be there for a Thursday night football. We'll do a draw for someone having a chance to join the Hangout. That is all to come.
Thanks for the invite.
Good drip today.
You're more than welcome to show. Thursday, would you like to come to
Are you
Fort
coming
Road?
to hang out?
Fort Road.
I'd love to.
All
be there.
right.
Well, now I'm going to expect you there.
I'll be there.
Having
The
the
brisket
brisket
cheesesteak
cheesesteak.
I've
sandwich.
heard.
It is
Yeah.
delicious, according to Lieutenant Air. Coming up next on Edmonton Sports Talk, Huss and Nielsen have a lock shop Monday Night Football best bets, and maybe we could get that futures bet for you thrown up there. We'll talk to Dusty about
Let's
that.
do
And
it.
then at noon, it is Oil Stream, Gazzola, and Nielsen. That's here on Edmonton Sports Talk. On behalf of Jed Roberts, who's not here anymore, Jay Milne, Tom Gazzola, I'm Matt Iwanek. Thanks for tuning in.